Good afternoon and welcome in for some more SPL. It is Saturday. I'm pretty sure I still remember my days. That means we've got some great games lined up here for you today. And we're starting to move into that time of the year when everyone is setting their eyes towards SWC, towards making sure they're in top form to compete on SMITE's biggest stage. I've got Mifflin here with me on the desk. And Miff, we're starting to come into the home stretch now, it feels like. And these teams are all kicking it into higher gear. Obey, Renegade, EU United, all playing the best Smite we've seen from them all year.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're right to highlight Obey first off overall on that list, Finch, especially considering we're going into an Obey set. Obey's on the rise. They're making huge strides as a team. I think that we're in the phase now where every team's going to play against each other one more time before we get into the World Championship. Obey's going to have to find some wins in the last phase of Phase 2 if they want to have some decent standings going into Worlds.
Well, let's take a look at the matches that are going to be coming up. As you highlighted, this Ghost Obey set going to be a big one. Hey, man, I agree Obey have improved a lot, but being Ghost is tough. We'll see how well they do. Radiance and United will be right after that, and then some more big games coming up on Sunday. Sanguine and Renegades battling to try and see how that middle of the pack ends up looking. We can also go ahead and take a look at those standings, see exactly where all the teams are, and this is what I mean. PK now up there tied with Sanguine for that third place spot, both with those 8-6 records. Radiance on a 6-week or 6-game losing streak right now, really struggling. And then Renegade, D9, and Obey all improving. United were winless for a long time. They've been looking hot ever since they added in Baskin and Gino and readily improving. So we're getting to a point where things are about as close as we've ever seen them here in the SPL. And I know you really want to talk about Obey, Miss, so I'll go ahead and let you loose on it. What is it that you're excited to see from this team here today up against Ghost?
I think that it really comes down to the duo lane when we're going to talk about Obey versus Ghost, because that's where we've seen the most recent strides for Obey. Inbound recently in particular has had a huge amount of performance boost on these gods like Ymir, like Sobek. He's able to play these aggressive styles. Kuzumbo comes to mind when I think about Inbound as well.
Yeah.
And he's been really, he earned a nickname back in Phase 1. And maybe we don't reprise it. I'm going to say it. It's Inbound. We called him Inbound for a while there. But I don't think that really does ring true anymore. He's very recently been able to clean up that play, not dying nearly as much, and been facilitating his team in a huge way.
And finding better deaths when they do come around, right? I think what Inbound's really improved on, he needed some restraint when he initially came into the SPL, right? He wasn't quite sure about what he could get away with here as opposed to when he was playing in the console league and was better than everybody else that picked up a controller for the most part. That team was dominant. But now I think he's realized exactly what his playing style can be. What are the right times for him to get aggressive? When are the right moments to start trying to look to initiate fights? And then even if it does end up costing him his life, at least it ends up being valuable for his team in the long run. So Inbound really has made leaps and bounds to improve. It's just that he's going to be lining up against Polar Bear Mike on the other side, and there's no one doing it better in the support role. I mean that without any qualifiers, and I don't want to hear any other names. This is the dude, if you lock in as a Guardian, that you're comparing yourself to.
Yeah, I agree completely. PBM is the golden standard for supports right now. This man's an absolute beast. He sets the role. He's got every single meta god in his pocket. He popularized the Hercules pick. He almost, I would say, single-handedly in Season 7 established the support needs to be pressure meta because he's so absolutely dominant in this role. Not only is he able to control the lane, finding these huge mechanical plays to the Hercules, but he's able to rotate out, separate team fights. He can also play the more facilitator playstyle as well. PBM, truly a champion.
He is, and he functions in a lot of different roles for this squad, right? He's a leader for this team as a big part of their in-game comms. On the battlefield, you can count on him to execute mechanically 100% of the time. As you already covered, he leads out of the game as one of those guys who sets the meta and determines what every other support needs to learn to do. I mean, look at Sanguine. They've completely changed this early game squad. It feels like that's emulating Ghost's energy, right? And that starts and ends with Polar Bear Mike and his ability to dominate the early game, where he looks for these early invades, where he puts you off kilter and demands that you come up with a way to answer the pressure that he'll be looking for. Now, we've said a whole lot of stuff about how good Mike is here at this point, and I'm sure you'd rather hear from the man himself rather than from us about how good this guy is. Mike is the one that we were able to catch up with earlier on for that pregame interview.
We are here with PBM now, of course, the support for Ghost Gaming. and they've got a matchup against Obey today. So bring in PBM, and Mike, I think I first want to look at Obey specifically in the long lane, maybe even more specifically in that support role. I think inbound has improved a lot recently. Obey as a whole has, I think, as well. Do you think this long lane matchup looks different for you guys from how it might have the first 2 times you guys played Obey?
Not really too much. I mean, I definitely agree that I think Bobby specifically has shown a lot of improvement throughout the year. I think from where he started in phase 1 to now, he definitely looks a lot more comfortable, whether that's like individual improvement or just him playing with his team. But as far as it impacts like myself and Panda in lane or just how we play the game, it doesn't really matter to us, I don't think. Like we don't really go off playing disrespectfully to people, if that makes sense. Like we just do whatever we think is correct.
And I think maybe more of the same probably on the back end of this question then. If you want to look at Obey entirely as a whole, you know, not only inbound, but the rest of the team I think has improved. Do you think this is another game where you still go in playing your game plan regardless, even though the team has made some strides here in phase 2?
Yeah, I mean, I still expect to win, of course. I go into every match expecting to win, but you definitely have to give every team respect, and they definitely have shown a lot of, like, I think they beat Radiance, right? And they've shown a lot of just improvement throughout the split and throughout the year, so they're not a team you can take lightly, for sure.
And I think looking back for you guys, specifically last week, you know, it showed, I think, a whole on team performance, and really I think Twig had a standout week last weekend. Talk to me a little bit about some of the improvements you've seen him make. I mean, was not bad by any means at the start of phase 1, but I think really is now starting to become, or has become, you know, one of the most important members of this squad. So what do you see in your mid laner here and the way he's playing?
Yeah, I think for Ben, it's that he finally has a style that he really feels comfortable with, that he's like doubled down on, and that our team is comfortable playing around. Like all the gods he plays and the way he plays for us, I feel really comfortable with. It's really funny too, because Ben is one of the players that people love to hate on a lot, but I think you could argue that he's maybe been our most valuable player so far in this phase.
Yeah, he looked fantastic last week. The Poseidon pick was definitely working for him. Kind of final thoughts on you guys here, Mike. I mean, really, I think a lot of fans watching you guys and maybe the SPL as a whole, this team kind of looks good to go, right? Going into Worlds, you're starting to build up. It's all about playing your best Smite at the right time. You have 7 sets left, 1 against each team. And so while the outsider might think, you know, the squad is reached its max potential, they're good to go for Worlds, do you as a team still see areas where you think you want to make some strides, make some improvements over your last 7 games of the phase?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely always think there's an opportunity to improve and get better. Kind of like you said, I just want to hit our peak and hit our stride at the right time. So I'm not super focused on like just winning these regular season matchups. I just want to make sure we're in a good spot and learning whatever we need to learn to get through the playoffs and get through Worlds.
Well, luckily you guys have set yourselves up you know, pretty well as far as the way phase 2 has gone for Worlds and placements and all that sort of fun stuff. Mike, best of luck against Obey today, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dave. Have a good one.
Well, listening to Mike, it almost doesn't sound like they're the second best team in the league and they've been trumping the best team in the league every time they meet them. They're still trying to hit their stride getting into the later end of the season. I mean, if they've got more in the tank, I cannot wait to see that. Absolutely crazy to hear how modest, humble, and then confident this team is that they still have more to show us the further on that we can get. Now, we're ready to get into the picks and bans here in just a moment for game number 1, Mifflin. That way we can see exactly what these 2 teams are going to be looking at prioritizing. Obey will be the team that is in the first pick spot to start this off. And I do think we've seen first pick be pretty relevant throughout these last few weeks here, Mifflin. That first pick overall affects what kind of stuff you have to ban, and maybe a chance you could take away one of those priority picks away from your opponent.
Yeah, and it also opens up the opportunity to go for those targeted bans, because you know Ghost is going to have to address those absolute meta picks because you're getting the first pick out, which means that if you want to make sure that PBM doesn't get Hercules, you can do it. If you want to make sure that Twig doesn't get something he's comfortable on, like Hebo, you can ban it out first overall, which is exactly what Obey is going to do. Now, Ghost, no slouch, know exactly what Obey's up to. They love that Ra Erlang Shen combo. Might as well take out the most important piece first overall. Go starting it up with a Ra ban.
Wolfie has looked, at least according to the eye test, much better on this raw pick than any of those other mid laners, though Raijin has been a comfortable go-to for him as well. I like Ghost stripping that away and putting him down onto a pick that hasn't had quite the same results. Now, Obey, sort of as you alluded to, seem to be going almost entirely target with these bans. I'm not saying Hebo and Hercules aren't deserving of these first-round bans, but it's not quite the same as maybe the Yamojas, the Freya, some of these other picks that you see almost perma-banned. I mean, Persephone is still available here at this point, too. Not a lot of room left to make sure all the top tier stuff gets taken away with these ban slots.
And with Ghost dedicating a ban towards the Cupid, it's likely that they finish it out with a Rom ban as well, just to make sure that Obey doesn't just come out ahead on that Hunter roll. Yamoja is going to come through from Obey here, which is a market improvement from last week. You know what? Might as well get rid of it if we don't have the best Yamoja in our own back pocket. So I like this adjustment immediately. And then Ghost showing a little bit of respect to Sino in the jungle. Arachne ban coming through here, leaving up some things that I would argue are just straight up better, like his Erlang Shen or even his Nike, but maybe Arachne's been having some huge strides in the jungle recently inside of scrims for Obey.
And it puts Obey in a position now where if you consider Persephone and Rom the top 2 picks that are left over in this slot, maybe even Amaterasu, well, Obey can only get one of those picks now, right? And then you would think Ghost get their pick of the remaining 2, but it looks like Obey, at least at this point, aren't even hovering on those 2 picks. I mean, you already highlighted with the Cupid taken away. This does leave sort of a bit of a gap left over in that Hunter role, so Ghost could potentially grab that Rom for Panda Cat right now, and then whatever it is that Wowie drops to would certainly be at a bit of a disadvantage. But how do you like this Nemesis first overall?
I mean, it's a strong pick. Nemesis doesn't really have any direct counter matchups besides the Hebo, which I think is the reason that Hebo came back into the meta in such a big way, with him already being addressed. Picking up the Nemesis. Yeah, oh, dude, my man's sitting like L from Death Note. My guy's got the sugar cubes on the desk. He's ready. I'm scared. I'm shook. And Obey should be too.
He locked in the Thor. Now I know my man is ready to play. And see, I was worried about all these sort of top-tier picks going right away and maybe putting Obey in this odd spot, but now the Thor Amir Nemesis getting prioritized means this isn't so much about making sure that they come in with the very best meta selections available, though these 3 picks are all certainly popular picks right now. Instead, they're trying to make sure they've got a game plan locked down. This Amir can cause problems for a dash-reliant Nemesis with walls in the jungle. This Thor should be able to set the pace before Nemesis is quite ready to get active as well. I like Ghost coming out of the gates hot with this pick, though no big surprise. If you leave that Rom on the table, Obey will take it.
Man, Inbound looks a little bit shook here. I feel like Ghost may have routed he wanted the Ymir, Ducky wanted the Thor. Ghost said, watch this, we're going to take it for ourselves. PBM's been looking really good on this pick, particularly himself. But Obey, no slouches, hovering some of the best in-roll picks possible. Rom locked in for the Hunter roll. Persephone coming in through mid here. I like this look for Obey, but it's not something that we've seen from them in the past. It's a very unique playstyle. Sino, much more used to playing that Initiator roll out of the jungle. Wolfie, much more akin to that Raw pick. Now Persephone coming through. It's got a very high skill floor. I think it's going to be a huge risk for Obey.
That's interesting. I mean, I mentioned Freya back at the top of the pick ban phase, but for some reason I really didn't expect it to come through. We have not seen a whole lot of Freya lately since all the changes that she got in terms of nerfs. I mean, even Hekate got taken down quite a few pegs as well, so we don't see a whole lot of these mage ADCs anymore. Olorin sometimes is the exception, but even he gets played in mid sometimes. It's not always these mage hunters that we see out of it, but this Freya getting locked in this early, I have a feeling this is going over to Panda Cat, especially in a world when they passed on the ROM early on. So if they saw both of these as viable hunters, it makes sense that they went ahead and prioritized the Thor Amir early, since they knew they can get either one of these 2 later on in the draft.
And now Obey making a quick adjustment in their bans, realizing that Ghost is likely going to want a Hunter in the mid-roll, go ahead and take out the one that we've seen BMT have the most success on, and thinking that Twig might try to emulate that, ban out that Neath. I like this a lot. Now, it's not often that we get to say this. Amaterasu, 9th banned overall, one of the best, if not the best solo laner in the game. That's absolutely nuts to me. So now what's left available here? I'm thinking at least that this Thor is likely going to go into the solo lane for Fino K. So I'm thinking that Ghost is likely going to be looking towards a jungle pick. I think Obey's definitely going to pick up a support here soon. And with the majority of Inbound's God Pool banned out, he might try and fall back down to that Kuzumbo, something he's had a lot of success on in the past.
Whoa, so if this Heimdall does come in, which Obey certainly were ready for, they banned away the Neath, predicting that this would be a double basic attack backline with a Mage ADC Physical Hunter. Which one of these would you prefer to see go into the middle lane? I mean, Heimdall has all this additional safety with that Bifrost, so maybe it could be him. Which one do you expect to be seeing Tweak pilot?
I think that in mid, you're going to definitely want someone who could find at least a little bit more pressure in the early game. Between Freya and Heimdall, it's going to be Heimdall. And then if you send Freya over into the long lane with Ymir, Ymir's ability to push through Glacial Strike and just his passive Frostbite should be able to make up for some of the weaknesses of Freya's early game. So I think that would make the most sense. Heimdall mid, Freya ADC. Obey is going to pick up the Kuzumbo for Bobby in that support role. It fits exactly what they need incredibly well. If you need to make sure that your Persephone and Ram are safe, no better god in the game to create space than Kuzumbo.
He does a lot of that with that ultimate, just pushing everybody back and creating all the room, and Cthulhu
That one too.
still available. I'm a bit surprised Cthulhu was the pick here for Obey because King Arthur has had a bit of a rise lately, and they still had the option to go over to Sun Wukong in the solo lane. He's been a really popular solo laner too, but you'll never complain about having the Cthulhu, especially with Nemesis already on your side. This should create, as you already said, a ton of room for this Ram and Persephone to breathe, and then this Nemesis could be part of that same backline dive with this Cthulhu if that's the call. And now the set coming in for Ghost. An aggressive comp between Thor, Set, Heimdall, Freya, and Ymir. That's just a ton of damage. Myth, I don't know if I want to ask you to necessarily make sense of this Ghost draft, but what do you think this Ghost draft is looking to do? What's the phase in the game when Ghost is going to be looking to get most aggressive and looking to try and fight?
So it's looking like a baton pass-esque comp where they've got a lot of early game aggression. Thor, Ymir, Heimdall able to fight incredibly early on. And then in the mid game, they might tamper off just a little bit until this Set and Freya can really hit their pace. And then it's going to be up to them to carry through the back line. I'm glad that you didn't ask me to make sense of the comp, because between Thor and Set, I'm not sure which one's going to be going to the solo lane. Both of them going to fill largely similar roles, as having assassins out of solo, easy to rotate in the mid to help out with that 3v3. But I'm worried about the execution of Ghost's early game, which is something I should never say. Why would I ever be worried about Ghost's early game? But I think that they've got a very strong draft here that, if they hit the ground running, might not ever stop.
It might not, but it'd be hard to deny that Obey have a very strong draft available to them. Ghost and Obey about to kick it off with game number 1.
Well, thank you so much, Finch. And that's right, Nagro, this is probably the most interesting time I think that we've gotten to have coming into this. It's the last time these two teams are going to meet in the regular season this year that they're playing. In Phase 2, it's their third matchup. And there's a lot to talk about on Ghost Gaming, but the thing that kind of caught my eye, just because I wanted to look at it, this is the first time all year that we've gotten to see Wolfie on this Persephone. And, you know, the desk had kind of highlighted it. It's not really the style we typically see him go for. How do you feel it's going to fit in here for Obey?
It's definitely a little bit different than what we normally see. What we normally see from Wolfie, I think that he's most successful, obviously, on the Raw, but just on picks that follow up well on CC. The communication between Inbound and Wolfie and Sino is clearly very good and sets them up for a lot of success in moments like that. And Persephone can be that style of mage. She can be, oh, I'm stunning this guy, let's execute him with your ultimate, let's try and lock him down. You can use your 1 as your burst damage in those moments. She's not bad at that. It's just that the rest of the game is so different for her as a mage as compared to someone like Ra, who obviously wants CC but can operate without. Persephone can as well, it's just her operation level is very, very high in comparison. And so if Wolfie is going to be comfortable on this pick, is pretty important. And as we're getting closer and closer to Worlds time, proving that you've got gods like Persephone in your arsenal is really, really key to threatening teams that'll make it harder for them to pick a ban against you.
Well, you can see that, well, at least Ghost right now seem ready to call the bluff. PBM already rotating over. Sam's over here as well for the invade on the red buff here for Obey. Looks like they're going to be able to pick that up. Not only that, but throwing it onto Mike as well. Ymir, and you know, he's not always known for his damage, but he does do a fair amount if he can get his combo down. So keep your eyes over there. And as much, again, as there is a lot of fun to maybe crack down and figure out throughout all of this game, I gotta talk about, you know, we mentioned the Persephone, that's maybe the easy question. The set over there against the Cthulhu is kind of a curveball, at least for me. I mean, we've seen Nemesis as the counter over here. Sino's got that, so they aren't able to pick that up for Ghost. We've seen Amaterasu kind of flex against this Cthulhu to control him. But set of all things, I mean, what is FineOK doing over here?
He's just going to take the free laning phase that you get up against Guardians, and Cthulhu is still a Guardian at the end of the day. He still is not going to pressure you out of lane that often, and it sets you up really, really well to be this mid-game monster that you can rotate out. You haven't been pushed out too much. And Set is one of those characters that I think we should be seeing more of in the SPL. It's a really good pick in ranked. If you're mechanically good at this god and you're playing jungle or something in ranked, you should be picking Set because he snowballs games so easily. Because once he gets ahead, he just has this damage mitigation on the 3 that makes him hard to kill. He's got the healing coming through in the ultimate, and he just puts out insane DPS. I think this god is really, really strong. And this is the exact type of game that I think it can work at a competitive level, where even though teams are going to be a little bit more focused on shutting you down, your laning phase should be good enough that you can get out of it.
Well, Obey are definitely utilizing the fact that they have a slightly earlier composition than Ghost. Doesn't happen often that you find yourself in this position, so use it when you can. There's FineOK getting aggressive. Sam, Sino both hanging out over here with their solo laners. And it's kind of the same thing, the most mana there for Sino. The Twig is getting low in mid. It just seems like aggression everywhere. Wolfie has the damage, but doesn't have the confirm there. That ult not able to tick over to level 5 in time here, and so he's not quite able to find the kill they need. And it feels like the pressure's been bouncing back and forth. Obey pushed up over here on the right. That duo lane has gone from Obey's tower line to Ghost's tower line and back in the matter of 30 seconds. So they just keep going wherever they need to here for Obey and finding that opening. But, you know, this is really, I don't even want to say maybe important. If you're looking at it for Ghost Gaming, they're on a win streak. They kind of came into it, PBM said in his interview, expecting to win, knowing that they've had some of the weirdest losses, I think, in Phase 2. They're the team that consistently beats SSG, but the last time they lost, it was a 2-0 to the Renegades, right? It just kind of comes out of nowhere. Yep. Do you think this is another one of those openings? As I say that, Wowie's going to go ahead and get taken down for what could be an opening. Bede's going to be forced out here. Another great wall from PBM, and the blink even, just to make sure that they know the pressure's on. I was going to ask, though, if this is one of those times Obey might be able to find an opening against Ghost, but I'm kind of starting to feel like maybe it isn't.
I mean, Obey's a team that you can't count out. You heard Mike say it during his interview. This is a team that will beat you if you aren't playing good Smite. It's just that Ghost has shown a much higher ceiling than Obey has up until this point, but we've seen so many upsets happen in these last few weeks. It's hard to call it definitively early on. I think Obey has the tools to win this set, no doubt. They've got a pretty solid draft. I love this Kuzenbo pick for inbound in particular. Little surprised that Ghost decided to ban the Ama instead of this Kuzenbo, especially with that Freya pick in mind, because I feel like Kuzenbo is one of the few gods who can actually handle Freya well enough through the early to mid game, especially once he gets upgraded Thorns. He removes some of that lifesteal coming through, and you're just return so much magical damage that I don't think even Freya can really afford to just jam auto attacks straight into a Kuzenbo.
Yeah, she has to be a little careful. Speaking of careful, PBM gonna get pushed back, ulted by the Nemesis. Sino looking to get the lockdown, and this is the amount of lockdown you need, but crushing from the skies. Sam for Soccer finds the stun. They're looking to try and turn it around. Obey find first blood, but FineOK finds the second. Takes down Sino and looks to continue trying to chase down something. Unfortunately, Sam for Soccer ends up losing his life. A double kill for the set as he makes the rotation. Maybe looking to make it 3. Ducky just under half health, but he is still a Guardian, as you had highlighted earlier. FineOK is going to go ahead and call it there. 2 for 2, kind of explosive out of nowhere for these two teams. But 2 of them going on to FineOK feels pretty good for Ghost.
I think that's a great opportunity for Ghost. And Obey certainly come out ahead. They got first blood, so they're the ones who get the bigger bounty. But getting FineOK 2 kills as opposed to Ducky's only 1 can be a big deal because, like I said, this set can get out of control fairly quickly. And you already start to see what the game plan is. Let Obey overcommit onto Mike. Sam comes in with a good dunk on the back end, and then let FineOK play the hero ball, get in there, clean up all those kills, and really make it hard for Obey to peel him off. You just can't. Once that Watery Grave is down, I feel like that's really the only good peel tool that Obey really have available to stop FineOK from doing what he wants in the midst of these team fights. And credit to Ducky, I think a lot of solo laners playing a Guardian might not rotate to that sort of engagement on right side mid Harpies, but he matches FineOK's rotation well. If Fine's there alone, without a giant Cthulhu ult to contest with, not only does Sam live, but Obey Alliance is basically getting wiped there.
It is interesting, though, as you noted, it's 2 kills there for FineOK versus Ducky getting 1, but the other kill goes the way of Inbound, so maybe not exactly who you want the kill to go on, although at the end of the day, I think confirming them, they're still happy on the side of Obey, but just knowing that you're now going to have this assassin ready and laying in wait, even if you keep up with the rotations eventually, well, I think that scaling is just going to start causing a little bit of trouble for you. But it's also taking a look at maybe Wolfie over here on this Persephone as well as this Heimdall for Twig, because that matchup I think is going to become very important if these fights just kind of keep coming out of nowhere. It was a very isolated attempt for Obey, but I think it just showcased how good Ghost Gaming are going to be in team fights. Sam comes crashing down. You've got, you know, the ability to save your team and isolate somebody if you use Twig's ult. It just feels like they're going to be able to control maybe some more of these 3v3 skirmishes a little bit better.
Ducky in trouble on this right-hand side. Has to use that ultimate, but FineOK still willing to keep on going.
And now they're just going to try and slow him down. The ult canceled out. Ducky's low, and Twig's right there. A little bit of damage, should be able to find the kill. Sam gets the last hit, but it's not before PBM gets taken down, trying to find the lockdown on Inbound and turn this in their favor. Things are getting a little topsy-turvy for Ghost Gaming. Sino forces out Twig, and FineOK is just looking for whatever he can at this point, trying to find some of the damage. They force out his lane opponent, well, kill off Ducky, force out Inbound. And then Twig went back to farm, unfortunately. Wowie making a quick rotation of the red buff, finds the snipes to ensure that one. So Obey now walking out of this one on top.
Really good little rotation over from Wowie. I don't know if Panda Cat didn't let Twig know that Rom is in the left side jungle and needs to be careful about getting sniped from that HP, or if Panda did let him know and Twig kind of went in with reckless abandon anyways for the one more wave syndrome. But either way, Obey clearly ready and willing to take these fights early on. That started with a Sam dunk onto Ducky, but just not enough damage quite yet to one-shot this Cthulhu in the midst of the CC chain. Now that Sam has Jotuns, he's got a full pen item online, Sledge done for FineOK. If that gank happens again, I wonder if it'll be enough damage to truly one-shot that Cthulhu. I think it's an okay spot for Sam to be looking. Maybe in mid, you can look to go a little bit more aggressive and play around your Hunter mid, but with the build that Twig is going, no Transcendence on the Heimdall, which is what I would expect from him in the mid lane. Most of the time, mid lane Hunters want to leverage their early pressure. Devo's is a much slower start than Transcendence, so that's why we see Transcendence more often in mid. That's what I expected Twig to go, and maybe because he is opting for the Devourer's Gauntlets, that's why Sam wants to take fights elsewhere.
FineOK right now, to just try and not take a fight. He wants to get out of here as fast as possible. Inbound, though, going to have a different idea. Forces the beads. Good freeze and peel from Mike. Slow going to be able to make sure Obey don't chase this solo laner anymore. Sam went up in the air. Looks like he's just going to go ahead and retreat. Looked like he might have wanted to go in. It was a good freeze. Maybe good setup that could have instigated a fight. I think Ghost Gaming at this point are looking to try and make up the deficit that they find themselves in. Not quite 2,000 gold. But the fact that Obey has been able to kind of passively, along with maybe that first blood bounty, the one extra kill they have, but for the most part, they've just been farming a little cleaner and accrued a small lead over Ghost Gaming.
It's these kills in particular that have really set them up in order to do that, but Wowie's good rotation into mid gets him a small level lead because of that last hit that he got onto Twig. Thought Ghost might engage once Inbound's dash got caught, but probably wise to let the full health Kuzenbo go. Sino walled off.
What a good wall, and that's just going to be the lockdown. Good luck getting out of there, Sino. That Nemesis completely controlled. Sam's a little low, though, on the tail end of this, and it looks like that's going to be fine for Ghost Gaming. He's going to get out, go back, farm up, stay safe. But knowing that Wolfie's available, that ult no longer being available, is going to make things different. Speaking of making things different, FineOK, just a full-on solo kill against this Cthulhu. If you were wondering whether or not Set would have a good lane, that should answer your question. Now they're continuing the aggression. Wolfie just under half health and locked down under the tier 1 tower. It looks like Ghost are fine to let these kills slip through, but because the control it gives them. Steal away the blue buff, steal away the back harpies, and just keep the pressure mounted on Obey.
They're in a great spot. All of a sudden, they've kind of hit the Jets. They were just down about 1,000 gold, right? And now all of a sudden, they're the ones in the slight lead, but the experience lead actually more in their favor than I thought it would be. A big solo kill for FineOK. You see the potential of this set in lane. Once he gets one item online, just means it's pretty much impossible for Ducky to withstand that extra pressure that he puts on him. Twig instantly going aggressive, even though he's really not that strong. With only 40 stacks of that Devourer's Gauntlet, still doing enough damage to force Wolfie's beads in mid. And a good pick set up by Mike on the blink wall. Ghost is starting to hit their stride, and the XP difference is starting to be noticeable.
Well, Sam comes crashing down onto Wolfie, just eviscerated before he can do anything.
Wall again.
Another great Ymir wall to lock down inbound. Not enough to find the kill, and a lot of the follow-up damage isn't going to be able to connect. Ghost Gaming just walk in, get one. Look like they might want to walk out here. Sino is kind of tentatively playing in there, wants to go up, get a little bit of damage onto Twig, but not able to find the full lockdown onto anybody there for Ghost Gaming. So they're more than happy to, again, come in, get the kill, get out.
And remember that they've got a matchup in Ghost that is a little bit spooky for them on the left-hand side. I mean, Freya, one of the worst gods in duo early of the playable characters over there, up against Rom, who is some of the best pressure that you can have on your side. Now you're getting to the point where Panda's already pretty strong. He doesn't have to worry that much about this matchup anymore. You're already out of the woods in terms of that matchup. That's kind of scary for Obey Alliance because you've allowed this Freya to truly free farm.
I mean, yeah, she's just been hanging out over here. And something I think we noticed after some of the nerfs for Ring of Hecate as she kind of fell out of the meta, mainly picking up things like the Hastened Ring a little bit earlier, but when I look down there and there's almost already a second ring completed for Freya, your timer, at least on that side of the map, seems to be finally coming to an end. So we'll probably start seeing more Panda Cat in here. Do you think that Wowie, he had that one rotation where he's able to get a nice ult kill onto Twig. Outside of that, has he really been able to do a lot early on? It looks like he's even going into some early crit here for the ROM. Is this something that's going to help him feel more impactful?
I think it is in part because we're not going to have the tankiest solo laner in the world coming out that you can afford to go crit, but FineOK already has Thorns, and I don't know, we haven't really been checking in a whole lot on that left side of the map, but clearly Wowie has not been able to effectively freeze Panda Cat out of this lane by any stretch, just based on where the net worth is for both of these characters. I mean, 500 deficit for Panda is kind of expected with the one kill for Wowie and a couple waves behind the tower.
Well, we were talking about Panda Cat and trying to lock him down. Seems to be high on Obey's to-do list right now. Inbound, almost able to get it. Panda Cat goes up to stay safe, but there's going to be the double ult from the duo lane on Obey, and the snipes are good. 1, 2, 3 for Wowie. And they make sure to shut down this Freya one more time. Another great wall from Mike. I feel like I'm going to say that a lot this game. And he's able to at least disengage here for Ghost Gaming. But Obey see the opportunity, are going to go ahead and start up this Gold Fury. Ducky's already zoning. Twig and Sam going to be locked up over here. No one's able to get in time, and they just confirm that. Ducky has to use his ult, but that's a fair trade.
Sometimes you forget how much better crit is at doing objectives like Gold Fury, but it matters pretty quickly, and that's exactly what happened, I assume, on that Gold Fury. Plus, it's about 15 minutes in. That was the first gold, so it's as squishy as it can ever be. Pretty easy one for Obey Alliance. Love Ducky's positioning, because that's fairly risky if you just let Sam go up into the sky and find a multi-man dunk on your backline. Making sure that Ducky has eyes on exactly where Sam is during that pull is really, really critical to making sure you're doing it safely. I like what Obey's doing. They aren't totally giving up the fact that they've lost a little bit of early momentum. You know, they're down in XP, particularly on the right side of the map. So what do? They instantly head left. Inbound sets up a beautiful gank. Really easy kill onto Panda Cat where he uses both relics and his ultimate. And that means that Ghost don't have a chance to really contest Obey on the Gold Fury. Love that decision-making from Obey to just go where they aren't weak, which is on that left side of the map.
Well, Ducky's going to get caught out here again. At this point, it's just going to be expected that these are great walls from Mike as he locks down Ducky. They get him to about 1/3 HP. It's the follow-up. FineOK doing a good chunk, dives the tier 2, finds the kill, and now keeps himself up 4-0-1 for the set. Dual lane, definitely something you have to keep your eyes on. The mid lane, something you have to pay attention to. Twig uses the Aegis to stay alive here, uses the ult to disengage from SMITE, who's diving the tier 1 tower. He's going to be able to stay out alive. Speaking of alive, Pandacat barely doing so right now and finds the trade thanks to Sam inbound. Incredibly low in the jungle. Where's Sam and Panda? They want to jump in here. It's going to be dangerous. Sam finds him with the hammer. Sino dives the tier 1 but loses his life for it, so he gets the kill. But at the end of the day, no, he walks away just for a little bit as they lose Sam for soccer. Just a bloodbath at this point. I mean, they're just killing wherever they can. Wolfie, last one standing for Obey on the left-hand side. Maybe going to be safe if he can make it to that tier 2, but FineOK's lurking in the jungle.
Man, what a hammer from Sam. We only saw it from Sino's perspective, but the hammer whizzed by Sino, ended up clipping inbound, double tap for Sam on that kill, and then just short of being able to kill Sino on the back end. Good shield usage by Sino kept him alive, at least for a little bit, until, of course, Mike was there to crash the party, so to speak. But all of this is pretty good for Obey. The one problem is that there is a 4-0-1-1 gigantic set coming out of the solo lane, and I don't know if anyone is going to be able to really effectively shut him down. There is dedicated anti-heal here for Obey. I mean, Toxic and Brawlers for Sino, so he can basically nearly 100% anti-heal him if he does auto-attack in 2s onto the set, or ults him, or does any sort of ability damage, so that's good news. Plus Divine, all of that combined is a 100% anti-heal coming at this set whenever he uses that ultimate, but he's so far ahead, I don't think he really needs the healing that much, Gore. His base stats and his HP from this build, a little bit of procs from both Sledge and the Caduceus shield are going to be pretty tough for Obey to chew through right now.
I mean, that plus all the health like you said, he's going to have on it. It's just going to be difficult to chew through. Not quite the same there for Wowie, who ends up just eating a full kit dunk, save for the ult from Sam, barely walking away with his life. And that's where things are maybe starting to find their difference. Is Ghost getting on the aggressive here. A good wall to lock inbound in with Pandacat and Sam trying to lock down the support. Kuzenbo going to go into the ult, knock him up. But it's a 1v4 here for inbound. He has backup on the way, but it's not there in time to save his life. Good ult from downtown for Wolfie. He's not going to lock down Sam for long. He goes up in the sky looking for the dunk and where he wants to go. A little too far back, but he's looking to cut off the path. Not able to find Wolfie, not able to help find Sino. They're doing a lot of damage, but this tier 1 tower is returning a lot in their favor. Twig, FineOK, finally picking up some of the kills and keeping the pressure going. All 5 members of Ghost here. Twig with the most health. And Obey trying to get out of here. Wowie, Wolfie, last 2 standing under this tier 2. They don't seem too confident in their ability to defend. Lucky for them, Ghost is turning the other way and going into the jungle.
A little bit too low to continue the siege, but a great fight coming from Ghost Gaming. Mike is just having himself a day, huh? I mean, this Ymir has been unbelievably impactful. He's level 16. He's the same level as everybody on Obey, except for Wowie, who is only 1 level behind. A 4-level difference between him and Inbound. And Inbound has just been unable to find any sort of effective play ever since that gank really on to Pandacat. I thought that he played that pretty well. Otherwise, it has been not Inbound's best day at the office. He was definitely on a different page than Sino, who felt like he had to blink in and ult to try and help peel and help because Inbound was committed with his positioning and the double walls coming from Ghost. But by that point, it was far too little too late. And because Inbound is dead, and now Sino has blink ulted, that kind of forces the rest of Obey to all-in commit alongside them, and that means they're going to lose more than one. That was nice.
Well, an interesting blink there from Inbound gets him out of the freeze and actually into a better position, pushes Mike to his doom, but now Sam crashing down is looking like he might trade his life. The snipes from Wowie are going to be able to help him find a double kill as he takes down the support and jungler there for Ghost Gaming. It doesn't look like Ghost are ready to get aggressive into the rest of it. They do burn every single ult on the side of Obey, though, so you lose 2 members for 1, but you get all those diamonds at the same time.
That was a really nice play from Inbound. He must have heard me talking about him because he popped off right there. The blink behind to get out of the freeze and then sets up Mike for an easy kill for his team, which in turn baits Sam for soccer. That was really well played by Inbound. And hey, even if you're level 12, you can still make plays like that.
At that point, are you Kuzenbo with blink and push? Good. You can do everything. I think that's kind of the big deal. If it's a 4-level difference, but he's level 12, so he has both of his relics online, so theoretically he's going to be able to come through. I think we've been bouncing through. I've looked at some of like the GPM charts that have shown up in the bottom left, the net worth here, as you can see, and not too much really separating them in terms of gold, but I believe Inbound was sitting there at like 333 gold per minute right now, which was pretty vastly behind the rest of them. So you have to keep, I think, him in those positions where he's able to find opportunities like that, right? Where he's able to turn Mike's aggression on its head. Maybe going to be the openings Obey need. They've been keeping up pretty well, but as the time has gone on, even in fights like that, they've slowly drifted away from Ghost. That gold lead has been kind of jumping between, let's say, 1,000 and 2,000 either way throughout this 22 minutes. Now it's definitely more in favor of Ghost than it has been all game.
They're in a very, very good spot, but you see the difference that the anti-heal makes already up against FineOK, who was tanking tower for a while. Look, he still lived, but he didn't get the massive healing that he was earlier on in that Kingslayer ultimate, really thanks to Sino's build in particular. But Wolfie's damage was pretty relevant in that little skirmish on top of that. Ghost really have this great CC and really good ways to divide the team fight with double walls, one from Ymir, one coming from Thor. Obey has to make sure that they are staying grouped, but not too grouped up. It's kind of, you can't do too much of anything. Everything in moderation, I suppose, here for Obey. Grouped enough that you aren't going to get purely separated by all the walls, but not so grouped that you get multi-man Ymir frozen. You know, there's always there's such a thing as being too grouped up for sure, and that's going to make this a pretty difficult tightrope to balance for Obey.
Especially considering Mike has been on the aggressive. He's not only been on point with these walls, but I mean, you had said it yourself, he's just having a great game when it comes down to locking people down. Inbound, maybe the next one on that list, at least frozen out there, but also utilizing that passive. It's easy to forget. I mean, Panda Cat's going to apply slow, same thing for Ymir. Speaking of Ymir, seems like PBM almost caught out. Ghost Gaming, they're itching for a fight.
Grouped up, and they know that they've got a pretty strong position with where they are, but it's only about 4,000 gold. They got to use this wall.
And they're going to be able to lock down Inbound, although Inbound looking like he's trying to lock down Mike at the same time. A good wall separates Obey from the fight, and they're going to be able to burn down the support, but Sino gets in time to burn down Twig. It's going back and forth. Panda Cat finds himself a double and looks to bring this Freya damage to fruition for Ghost Gaming, locking him down. But the crit from Wowie, almost enough to burn through FineOK, but not enough. This 7-0-4 set finds himself a triple kill, and Ghost Gaming, well, at this point, they're just looking to barrel down mid, take themselves a tower, and keep this aggression going.
So whenever I said they have to be grouped up, but not too grouped up, that's what too grouped up looks like for Obey Alliance. You cannot get that many people hit by Valkyrie's discretion shots in the midst of a team fight. That just really should not be happening if you can help it, which Obey certainly can. Really good job by Sino. He got into the back line, found a fantastic flank, got on top of Twig. Twig died mid-Gallarhorn cast, didn't use a relic or his ultimate. Did virtually nothing past that slow and damage coming from the Gallarhorn, and Ghost still swept Obey after the fact. They got the backline damage dealers. That means that Ghost can't get too much on the back end, which is good for Obey. But that team fight did not even need to be that close, frankly, Gormizer. If Twig got anything off, I think it would have been even more of a rout.
Well, Sam might be looking to be a little BM here if he lands on Wolfie just off the mark there, as he's trying to stop this farm from coming through on Obey and make sure that the pressure mounts up on the left side. And this, to me, starts to scream well, not only Primal Fury, which is what Ghost Gaming have started up now, but they're looking for a Fire Giant at this point, right? Like, you want this pressure on left-hand side, you're building it up and amassing it to force Obey to dance over there and send someone over there to try and keep the farm going for them. That opens up that right-hand side of the map. Pyromancer about to respawn. Fire Giant hasn't been taken yet this game, so he's still just chilling in the lava pit. This is a team, at least on the side of Ghost, that feels like they're setting themselves up for even more victory at this point.
So Obey has to be a little bit more wary of how grouped they are in this coming team fight. It's exactly what they can't allow to happen, where FineOK is able to get into the whole teeth of the team and reflect a ton of damage. Love the Spectral Armor pickup for him, realizing that crit coming from Wowie could otherwise be problematic. Now Spectral not fully negates, but does a lot. to get rid of that worry for him. He's going to be able to dive Wowie with relative ease at this point.
I mean, and they've had trouble already dealing with Fine-OK, right? He's 8-0-4. The guy's untouchable, it feels like. And even in that last fight, not only finds himself a triple kill, you split that with PandaCat, who so far has had a pretty quiet game on the Freya, gets himself a double kill in that one. That just makes it a little scary, I think, for everybody involved, especially knowing that there's at least one upgraded shell there for Panda enabled. It's all started the same way. Each fight, you have to watch out for inbound because he's the one that they pick off first. Once that Kuzenbo's gone, it seems like that's the go button for Ghost.
Ghost doesn't have great objectives secure, but their burn is pretty solid. The DPS between a Heim and a Freya, not exactly great out of Heim, but pretty solid out of Freya.
Well, they're trying to burst down Twig right now, just barely going to be able to make it out of there, and he stays alive. Ducky goes up into the ult, but Sam comes crashing down instead, and that's going to be where the damage is found. Sino first to fall in the fight. Wolfie incredibly low, same thing for Twig, but it looks like Twig and PandaCat are finding themselves in 2v1 inbound, trying to find a kill in the back line. It's not gonna go his way, not this time. You can't just run into Freya and not expect the turnaround. PandaCat finds a second for his team. Ghost end up taking Obey and kind of ripping him apart into two fights there.
Really, Obey should be thanking Sam. He killed Sino, but he also saved the life of Wolfie and Wowie with an unfortunately placed wall that blocked Fine-OK from continuing the chase with that Kingslayer up. He had enough movement speed that I don't think there's any way Wowie really gets away from him. But with that wall coming down, it separates Fine-OK from the backline of Obey, and it still doesn't end up mattering that much. I mean, Ducky's putting out good damage, he's frontlining well, Sam gets low, but the rest of Obey is just so preoccupied with what Sam and Fine-OK are doing that it makes it pretty easy for Mike to just turn around and help peel for PandaCat and keep him up in the face of that Kuzenbo dive. Obey is just a little bit too scattered in these team fights. They aren't working as well as a unit as Ghost are, and that's been the big difference.
I mean, even there, you know, the way you describe it, it kind of sounds like Sam was saying, you know what, they're not stopping Fine-OK enough. I'll slow them down for you guys, just to make things a little easier.
Well, he wants to make sure that, like, if Fine-OK kills 2 more, then Sam's probably not going to get 4 more kills at the pace this game is going. So he just wants to make sure that he can still end up getting more kills than Fine in the end game. Pretty smart by Sam when you think about it that way.
It's definitely a 5-head level play, I think, when it comes down from the jungle. And it's the only kind of thing I think that someone on Thor could do. And honestly, only a team like Ghost maybe could try to factor into themselves. It's a 13,000 gold lead at this point. One tier 2 tower still standing for Obey Alliance as we hit the 29-minute mark. And it's just control. The only person not level 20 at this point is still inbound. So far, hasn't been able to find the same kind of, well, just setup that he was early on. He hasn't had the same blink pressure that we saw when he was able to turn things on its head towards Mike. And now they're looking for a Phoenix defense. Are Obey going to be able to thwart Ghost Gaming here?
They've got good defense because of their Persephone, of course, and Cthulhu as well, but Sino looking for Sam, forces Relics.
Now wants to go in, and they find the kill before he can make it up. The freeze not going to be able to lock down Sino either, so they're not looking for the return kills just yet. A beautiful wall one more time, though. Who cares about the freeze when you can change the geometry of the map? PBM's going to at least pull back one. Jungle for support's not always in your favor, especially Sam in this case. They at least keep the pressure going. And now in a 4v4, I don't know if Ghost have the same amount of pressure to really knock down this Phoenix.
Well, Fine-OK still has his ult, but no blink right now for Mike, and no shell for PandaCat. Those are the big relics that are currently down.
Well, Fine-OK is going to go into the back line. Wowie is just getting eviscerated. Half health, Aegis, and beads used just to get on out of there. They'll stay alive for now. The crit damage not doing anywhere near as much as you had highlighted on the Fine-OK, but it seems to be enough. He's at 1/3 HP. Him, PandaCat, and Mike all looking to run away. So Wowie and Wolfie get aggressive. Ducky stays alive throughout all of that as well. While that Phoenix, it's taken a beating, it is still standing for the time being. The wall comes up, Sino's back, wants to go in. Twig just taken down like it's nothing. The Phoenix still alive, just one hit away from dead. But PandaCat over-aggresses Mike, one hit away from death as well. If they can lock him down, it's going to be difficult to do. It is a Ymir you're chasing. They'll still be able to do it. Turn things on its head. Make sure that Ghost Gaming don't just run away with this game.
Listen, I respect Captain Twig face jamming into the Phoenix, trying to step up enough to get it. Sam should be looking for Sino, but Sino's Magi's is up.
Sam. He's gonna go in for the dunk onto the backline and finds the damage he needs to onto Wowie. Gets rid of him, loses his life for it in the process. FineOK go in for the steal on the Oni Fury is the question now. Looks to try and run in. Obey gonna clean that up before he can do too much about it. He's gonna be the last man standing. Has to wait 13 more seconds before he has a teammate around him. But the good news for Ghost, you lose that fight, you lose that Fury, you still have 5 towers standing on your side of the map, and technically, you still have the Fire Giant buff on Fine for 20 more seconds, so you're not feeling the burn too badly.
No, not quite. I still think Ghost should have been able to get that Phoenix pretty easily. I think Twig
So low.
just retreated a little bit too quickly on the initial push. He Bifrosted out and then realized that the Phoenix was like 1 or 2 autos away from death, so that's why they tried to re-engage and go back for it.
Unfortunately for them, as kind of like a mark on their performance, it's sitting over there tauntingly at 1 hit. It's got to take a lot to convince someone not to just maybe Bifrost over there. I don't know where the crystal is. If it happens to be right outside the Phoenix, I would absolutely have to be talked down from trying to jump into a Phoenix just to take it. But I think they're going to set themselves up for some different forms of success. There's an Oni wave on left that looks like it might just take that tier 1. So Sam's going to have to go over there. An Oni wave on right. That's pressuring them out as well. But that Fire Giant's in about 20 seconds. You can tell that's where the preparation for Ghost and Obey right now is all centered around. And normally, 33 minutes in, if I told you a team had 11k gold lead, the Fire Giant should theoretically just go so handily in one team's favor. But this does still feel like anyone's game. And Obey are actually in a really good position to try and control this.
They're not too far behind. They've got 6 items on every single one of their characters. Few, it looks like 2 people missing boots now for Ghost that have those speed pots, but otherwise, you're right, Obey really isn't that far behind in itemization right now, and they know that Twig's Aegis is still down for a few more seconds.
Well, positioning has always been key, though. A good ult onto Twig, looking to force him down. Sino, Wowie, everybody wants to get rid of this Heimdall, and they're going to invest 3 ults into him, but it pays off at the end of the day. They get the kill. Now what can they find afterwards? Sam burned down like it's nothing. Sino finds a double kill, looking for a third here on FineOK. The first death of the game for the set, finally taken down there, and Wowie gets credit for that one. 3 members missing for Ghost Gaming inbound, just trying to make sure that the rest stay in combat and stay separated, because Obey, they don't care about the Fire Giant. They're looking for the objectives. They're going to be able to pressure out this Phoenix. They already got the tier 2. That's going to be one big objective for them, but they lose inbound in the process. It seems like a split call. They can't tell if they want to go for the end or not. They're running into the base. They've got minions. It's a 4v2. They've got the damage. They're going to look to try and take the Titan down to end Ghost Gaming. What can Panda Cat do to try and stop it? The damage is going to be there. The ult comes out. Sino going to be the first to fall. Respawns 10 seconds out for Twig. Looks like that wave not going to be enough for Obey. The wall will be enough for Ghost. PBM finds a double kill for the defense with the help of his Hunter. They're going to be able to save the day and keep this game going.
Classic P squared right there. P squared being the PBM Panda Cat duo lane, of course, as we all know. That's like how everyone knows them. But that's just easy defense for them. 4v2, not a big wave coming from Obey. They're low on ultimates. Looked like Sino Ducky were the ones trying to end, while Wolfie Wowie trying to back up. Those are always awkward situations afterwards because you don't want to say I told you so. But now you were in a great position. You could have gone back, probably done fire, and now you're watching Ghost Gaming secure an enhanced Fire Giant. All they have to worry about is 1 Phoenix being down on the right-hand side. Not a great position anymore for Obey, who just had a phenomenal team fight for what it's worth. They get a chance to get on top of Twig. Remember, he had no Aegis right off the bat. Twig can't use a Bifrost portal to get away fast enough. And the long-range damage from Wowie as well as Sino, who, despite the rough scoreline, has had a pretty solid game by my estimation. His stamp has been all over these team fights for Obey.
And, I mean, as unfortunate as it is, right, you had kind of mentioned that Obey, they get that Phoenix and unfortunately aren't able to get anything afterward, right? They don't reap any of the true benefits on the map. with a Pyromancer, a Fire Giant, enhanced at that, going the way of Ghost Gaming. Hey, there's a Primal Fury coming up, but that's the most consolation prize objective in the game that you could get at this point, outside of maybe a Tier 1. That's not going to stop them. Cyno, he wants to get aggressive. All of Obey are. They're nowhere near their base. They're jumping into Ghost Gaming right now. Inbound, though, under the Tier 2 Banish. Cyno as well eats way too much damage that time around, and the jungler falls down first. Wolfie gets eviscerated. FineOK looks for another, finds a double kill as he's just running through 10, 1, and 6, looking to try and make it 11, but he's so low at this point, going to lose his life to Ducky, but it's going to set up Mike Sam to come in and lock down the last surviving member for Obey. While this fight's going on, Ducky, he's going to go ahead and die. Look at the mid lane. They're running down Twig and Panda Cat to make sure they have the minion wave, the enhanced Fire Giant, backdoor protection's gone, Phoenix gone, Titan dead. And even though just 2 minutes ago it seemed like Obey could win this one, Ghost Gaming still take game number 1.
A valiant effort from Obey, nearly coming back to win a game that looked pretty far out of hand, but Ghost teamfight just proves to be too strong. They try and do the exact same strat there, Gore, of just getting onto a backline right away. Cyno, Blink ults, finds his way right on top of Panda Cat, but Panda Cat really good pathing to get underneath his Tier 2 and mid. A great wall by Mike to stop Cyno from getting that chase going. And then FineOK just creates infinite space. There was no need for anyone else to come and help. He went 1v3 and killed Wowie and Wolfie by himself.
Yeah.
That's pretty good value out of your solo
Seems pretty
laner. When that happens to you, you are not winning games. You just aren't. FineOK did too much in game number 1. That set pick in the 10th slot was too devastating for Obey to handle.
Definitely showcase not only that FineOK has a really, really ridiculously deep god pool, but also you just can't let him have anything over there without him getting away with it. That was a good set pick, good game from both teams, and goes to show exactly what PBM said. You can't sleep on Obey, or they will win the game. Unfortunately here, they end up still going down, but it makes this set a lot more interesting here. So we take a quick break, and then we'll be back with game number 2.
Tomorrow we could see things differently, but the way it's going right now, we better put it on hold. It's your 17th message in 17 minutes. I can reply no more, my head's not in it. Don't mean to shut you down, but I'ma put down this phone. So patiently, I'm listening. I know that you've been up waiting for me. Alright, I'll tell you. Before you go lay down, unlock the door. As soon as I get home, I'll be all yours. Let me come inside, and we can reconcile. All night, all night, all night. Let me come inside, and we can reconcile. All night, all
Welcome back to the SPL. Obey and Ghost had a much closer battle, at least towards the end there, than I thought they had any right to have. But in the end, Ghost took care of business. And I'm doing a disservice to FineOK already by going 10 seconds into this without mentioning his name. But my man popped all the way off on set solo. We were wondering where the set was going to end up. But clearly, Ghost knew all along that what that draft needed was more damage. For some reason, I got Mifflin here with me on the desk. And Miff, that's exactly what I said to you, right? is this, how could a draft with Thor and Heimdall and Freya need more damage, and they also be right about that?
Those were the exact words you said to me, and I think what I said was an audible jaw drop, drool dripping out of the corner of my mouth, and an elongated as Fine OK continued fragging onward, landing 10 kills throughout the duration of the match. But, you know, every Soul Laner has humble beginnings, and it starts with a jungler paving the path for him. I think Sanford Soccer's map presence may have allowed some of that to come through. But in all seriousness, Fine OK has an absolutely phenomenal game, not only controlling his own lane, but able to rotate out, control team fights, help out in the 3v3 and mid, and then, as Aggro highlighted on the tail end of that cast, goes into a 1 versus 3 alone and takes 2 on his own. That's crazy.
It is, and I really think this is kind of defined by Ghost's frontline, right? Mike had a ton of great walls that was setting them up throughout the early to mid game. There was tons of great initiations from Sam as well, but for the most part, this one felt like, to me, in terms of actually getting in there and completing the work, that it was being done by Fine OK. So an excellent performance really from all of Ghost. And then we're not even giving Obey enough credit for, because I thought they were out of this game, like, on the hospital bed, declared dead, let's move on, and then they find a way to start pushing back in. They make that push back up mid and just don't have enough to close this game out. I mean, it was a close one, but as Bane said, there can be no true despair without hope, and I suppose that's what Obey just felt.
Wow, ghosts are some for real villains in your mind. I got you now. But that play in particular, I remember you said it like, wait, Ghost is defending their own Titan here? And I was right there with you. But I think Obey kind of missed an opportunity. There's so many towers still up at that point in the game that Obey might have been better served just backing up to Fire Giant and taking that objective and then trying to work it more into the just standard playstyle, burn through the towers, then go to the Titan. But instead, Ghost Gaming, or Peace Squared, as Aggro so eloquently put it, was able to find a sick defense.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm 100% ready to hop on board just yet, but I'm with you all there. A great opening game here from Ghost, and I think still want to make sure that we give Obey at least a little bit of credit for keeping this one close, because a lot of teams step up against Ghost with an early game draft like this, or at least early game potential, and they get run over right away. They hung with them in the early game. The mid got very much out of control in the beginnings of the late game, and then Obey were able to find a way to bounce back in. But now the question becomes, how does Obey adapt in the picks and bans? I mean, they got Persephone here in this draft. I mean, Ghost took at their top 2 Thor and Amir, not exactly the ones you want first off the table, but I think they went more for limiting what Obey could do. If Ghost do something similar here in this next pick and ban phase, I don't know what Obey have left to try and go back to.
Look, I said the same thing about Obey's last set, about Inbound and his Yamoja. I think that if you don't really have a Persephone, and I'll go out on a limb and say that that Persephone performance was not particularly impressive from Wolfie, play something you're better at. Play something else. Dedicate a ban to that slot. It's going to work out just as fine instead of putting yourself on an uncomfortable foot. I think that Obey can make some slight adjustments in the picks and bans and then try and bring that same energy, because on the field mechanically, they played fine in Game 1.
I think they did too. This is just one that got away from the MIF. So let's go ahead and hop into those picks and bans for game number 2. Obey will be in the first pick spot here again. This is where Ghost already did their damage with that Thor Amir top 2 pick in response to the Persephone going over to Obey. And really, I mean, what from this draft can you ban? Maybe the Freya from Handicap, but I mean, I think that was 3rd, maybe 4th on your list of problems that set. Maybe take the Heimdall from Twig, but that might even have been lower than the Freya in terms of threat. Not that Twig played poorly, but just that everyone else was popping off. So in terms of your big adjustments here for Obey, it just feels difficult for me. Is this something where they need to make huge adjustments in picks and bans, or sort of as you were alluding to, can they go back in with a similar draft and just maybe hope to execute a bit better?
If I'm Obey, I'm adjusting my own individual draft. I don't really think that Obey need to address the individual pieces that Ghost had, because you're not going to ban what you already highlighted. You're not going to ban the Ymir. I mean, are you that worried about Set? Well, maybe you should be that worried about Set if Fine OK is going to play like that. But those are all picks that are tertiary at best on the tier list. You're not really worried about that as a dedicated ban. I think if Ghost is going to play their own individualistic style that is so far removed from the meta, the only way to beat something like that is to play your own style, to play it better. And saying that, easier said than done up against Ghost Gaming, but what are you going to do? If you ban out exactly what they played last game, well, then you're leaving Yamoja, Persephone, Amaterasu, all the meta picks that you know Ghost can play available. I think that Obey just have to work on their own draft.
They do, and I would be trying to prioritize, if I'm Obey, that mid 3v3. I mean, that's what got them on that surge in the first place, right? It was all this synergy between Sino and Wolfie, and then when Inbound elevated his play, really started to show us exactly what we'd always thought he was capable of, but we didn't see when at the beginning of his SPL career. But I think we started to see it now. That's what I would be more comfortable with them getting back to. Get Wolfie and Sino on something where their synergy is back. It can't be the Ra this time for him, but something that can synergize with Sino's Erlong or some other heavily set up jungler. But it looks like they're going away from the heavy setup jungler. It'll be the Nemesis. That still provides kill potential, certainly for them, and great fight potential, but not quite the same as the recipe that we saw give them some early success.
Yeah, and it's just not exactly the jungle style that I'm used to seeing Sino on. I love seeing him on these initiator, I'm going to run in WQU type junglers. I don't think Nemesis necessarily fits that play style. I think even the Thor that we could see locked in by Ghost here would fit Sino a little bit more. But Sam for Soccer has some of the best Thor performance in that first game. Mechanical individual plays. I think it's absolutely fine if he wants to go back to it. And with bans playing out largely the same, picks playing out the same as well, it seems like we might be primed for a little bit of a salty run back.
Well, I think that if you're Ghost, there's no reason to make any big adjustments, right? Take the Thor and the Ymir, and then come back along later and get the rest of that draft. Now Obey have a chance, I think, to try and make some adjustments. They already have by not going for this Persephone right out of the gate. They did go for this Nemesis at the top last time, too. So I'm wondering if they're going to put Wolfie on something a little bit different. I mentioned the Raijin earlier as a comfort pick for him, but doesn't have to just be that. Just make sure it's something you know that Wolfie can execute on and is at that high level that we know that he could get back to. Remember when he was with that rival team? They were the best online and then always runners-up when they got to the LAN, too. This was a strong squad with Wolfie as part of that core. Let's see if we can get him back to that same energy we know he can bring.
Yeah, I would love to see him on the Raijin or even potentially the Merlin. Not the Persephone. God, please, not the Persephone. Not this time. I need you to land your ultimates here, Wolfie. And I think that he certainly has the...
Oh, wow.
Persephone's a really good pick. Grasping Death has CC on the ultimate. If he dies, he can respawn and come back, essentially without any punishment and try and get some kills post-mortem. Yeah, Persephone, fantastic pick here for Obey. Salty run back? A little bit of a salty run back here, Finch.
It is indeed that salty run back, but I think that Ghosts have a chance to disrupt this even further. Last time they banned the Sobek, and I don't exactly remember what their fifth ban was, but I wonder if taking away this Kuzenbo from Inbound could potentially be even more destructive for them in this secondary phase. We'll see how they choose to approach it. Now the Freya comes in exactly like before. So far these two teams are running it back exactly the same, but this secondary ban phase we could have some big adjustments, right? We know the missing pieces are the Set and the Heimdall right now for Ghosts, and it's the Kuzenbo and the Cthulhu that are missing for Obey. So definitely a chance for either Ghost or Obey to strip some of those away. But even into the bans, they're saying the same. Ghost ban the Sobek the same way they did in that first game.
Yeah, I mean, Sobek makes sense as a ban here because it has some of the most survivability, not only inside of the soul lane, but also out of support. So Ghost taking a double-pronged attack there with that ban. I would be surprised if Ghost allow Kuzenbo through again. Neath coming through from Obey. I mean, if you're worried about the mid-hunter coming through again, I think I much prefer to play against Heimdall out of mid than Neath. So I think there's a smart ban from Obey again. But I want to see Ghost make a slight adjustment here to ban out the Kuzenbo in this last phase. And it is going to be the Kuzenbo from Ghost. That's very smart. Now Inbound's going to have to go even deeper into his God pool and find something he's comfortable on.
Going to make things a whole lot harder for him. I wonder what might be next. We've seen the Fafnir come up sometimes when they're forced to go this deep into the God pool. Certainly an option, and perhaps you can get some safety out of the Draconic Corruption, but just feels as though it is at least a bit slim pickings with Amir, Sobek, Kuzenbo, Hercules, Yamoja all banned away from that role to limit some of those options. We've even seen Mulan support come out sometimes. I think that's more of a Sanguine special. It didn't exactly work there either. Awilish is the next ban for Obey. I think this is a bit of an adjustment here for them. So basically the same, maybe some small adjustments to the secondary ban phase. For the most part, things are the same. And Ghosts still have a chance to come back and grab the Heimdall if they want to, or the Set, but it'll be the King Arthur this time. And just kind of in general, are you a fan of King Arthur's resurgence here? I mean, his performance has certainly been there to back it up.
Yeah, King Arthur looks real good right now. Lane bully to the max. He might have the best trade potential in that short lane. Just absolutely possible. It's so hard to gank him, and he's such a good facilitator for ganks. The ultimate, not only having the short duration stun on the unpowered up version, but the full-on just anime 7 cloud strike Final Fantasy move that he gets when it's fully charged. Just that's a ton of time for your jungler to position under you and get ready to follow up. I think that King Arthur is a fantastic pick, and it makes perfect sense to me that we're starting to see him get picked a little bit more in the SPL.
And that does mean that we'll likely be seeing this Thor go back to Sam again, right? King Arthur almost certainly just going to be going to solo. So Obey now bring in the Nike, and this does feel like a pick for Sino in the jungle, especially with this Cerberus coming in. And so now we're starting to see, well, no, the Nike's going to be going over to solo, excuse me, for Ducky. So now the Cerberus then is going to be the support for inbound. Is that where inbound goes to in a world where everything else has been banned? We've seen it solo for Baskin. How do you like it here?
I love it. I love it. It's going to be really good. There's a lot of fight potential here.
Oh, no.
He can slow down the Ymir, who's largely immobile. I don't like it as much anymore. This Anubis is going to now have a very easy target to hit. If Cerberus wants to engage, he's going to have to either jump or blink into the middle of a team fight and then leave himself largely standing still for the better part of 2 seconds. 2 seconds standing in front of Anubis. Might as well be standing on the train tracks with it coming barreling down towards you. He's going to have a very hard time taking these fights.
I don't like standing on the train tracks. You need a new analogy. That's too much. Nike, though, I almost immediately want to give that one over to Sino, but with this Nemesis, certainly that'll be going over towards Ducky. So this gives him some chance to sort of fight in this lane up against the King Arthur, but it's just not particularly persuasive to me, right? The disarm, not all that effective against King Arthur, who's going to be so reliant on these abilities. The leap, not all that effective either. I think that we might be in for another one of those comfortable games here for Fine OK.
Just to cover our bases, Finch, because we gotta play safe here.
Nike support, don't say it.
It could be Nike support coming through, and I think that fits Inbound's play style just a little bit more, but that's a stretch.
No.
We're reaching. We don't exactly know.
Mifflin, you spoke into existence. Nike support. I'm going to 100% support you on it. It's got to be what Inbound's playing. Go into game 2.
Well, it would actually end up maybe being a good prediction here for the casters, as it is inbound on the Nike support that is going to be coming through. Ducky taking that Cerberus over there to the solo lane aggro. I want to hand it to you to talk about this, but first, there's a little bit of a grouping by Ghost. They're jumping around, so they don't seem all too serious, but Inbound is on something relatively squishy. There's 5 members here. Ymir with the slow, the jump forced out. And if you're watching this, let that be a lesson as to why you never level your first ability until you know what the enemy team is going to do, because if Inbound had anything else there, he's dead.
He's dead for sure. Really good idea to hold on to that button. It feels bad to end up getting your jump at level 1, but it's better than giving over first blood. That's for sure, especially on the back of Mike's upgraded Sunder pickup that he already has. We've asked for this when Nike's going to get played again. You know, why don't we just see everyone go for that? Feels like that might be the strat here. Make sure that those ultimates are not super impactful.
You know, every time I see Ymir, I want to talk about Frostbite, although right now, maybe causing some trouble for Mike. The sprint pop, they want to get aggressive. Wowie goes in. Mike is 1 hit away. Simultaneously within what feels like 30 seconds. I guess it really has been within 30 seconds of itself. Everybody going to be right next to one another in terms of their damage. But backing up and going for the buffs, we can relay, I think, some of the other stuff that I was looking into, just because I was getting a little nervous when we were in picks and bans. I thought we were going to get some Obey versus Sanguine-esque plays from last week where they just ran it back in game 2 and, well, they got steamrolled. There's no other way to really word that one. But I do think it's nice because the first time that these two teams played aggro, Nike was picked up for them. It was the first showing that Obey had, the first game of Phase 2. What could be potentially the last time these two play each other? She's going to be there for Obey. They really do want to change that story around. Do you think Nike being over here in the support role is going to help kind of change things in their favor?
I don't think it was their best possible option, just based on what I'm seeing out of Ghost's draft. That's the big thing, is that obviously there's something I'm sure that they've been practicing. But it's not like there were a ton of supports banned. There were a lot, sure, but it wasn't like there were 5 or 6 kind of taken off the table. Nike is still playable. I think she still does bring enough to the team compositions. But I just don't know if this is going to be a game where Inbound can be as impactful. I mean, Freya yeah, you love the shield against the Pulse because you only have to worry about so many auto attacks coming through from range. So you just throw up the Nike shield, absorbs all those shots, then you get to kind of go at her with some auto attacks. But between Freya ult and Freya whoop, I just don't think this Nike's really going to be able to stick to PandaCat nearly as well as what we could have seen coming out of him. And it just doesn't feel like it was so necessary that they get this, you know, Cerberus is so good here that we need to put a physical in support. Just don't feel like it was really the case for them. Maybe a bit of a reach.
Well, I will give some credit to them where it maybe is due, and that is just the fact that Sino, Ducky, if you were watching the mini-map, did get aggressive, almost found themselves a kill over there onto that King Arthur. Didn't quite lock him down enough to fully find that, but still making sure that they know their presence is known. And now you got to keep an eye on the jungler here for Obey in case they want to make things go, well, the right way for them. They're starting to tick over to level 5s here, mid lane, as well as a couple of the junglers, and Ducky going to go ahead and tick into that. And I want to say tempting the fates more than anything on Ghost. 100% win rate here. Granted, it's across one game, but 100% win rate here for Anubis. And Twig pulls it out. I mean, a highly immobile pick. Does it still feel good into something like Nemesis that slows you down more than anything else?
Nem is a very difficult matchup, I think, for Anubis, because a lot of times his only recourse is to stand and fight. And if you don't have wrap up, or you've already wrapped and Sino still has shield available, good luck, because you're gonna kill yourself on that retribution shield pretty quickly. But until Sino gets that anti-heal online, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go exactly what he did last game, which was the stone cutting, then into a toxic blade, then into a brawler's beat stick, just to make sure that Twig can't lifesteal through all of his damage, and the same can be said for PandaCat. Once all that comes in, I think Twig is really in trouble in this matchup. Up until that point, I think there's a chance that Twig could just out-lifesteal the damage that Sino is going to put onto him. And I think that we saw Twig play this matchup against Persephone in particular. I wonder if that's their idea of what they like Anubis against, is this Persephone matchup.
Oh, he just barely missed the stun there. Doesn't matter, because he still found the damage. Lockdown going to be good enough from Sam. Forces the ult out of Wolfie, although, oh, technically now fires after the fact, after life coming through here for Wolfie as he just tries to get some farm. Maybe a little bit of damage to come through, but no lockdown for them. And I do think one of the universal things in Smite, something everyone at some point has to have experienced, is an Anubis with that lifesteal build going from virtually dead to full health because he decided to hit 2 abilities, or maybe he just ulted your tank. And so that is something to keep your eyes on and open for here, which is specifically Sino getting that anti-heal. Right now, though, you have to watch it inbound because he's locked between 3, maybe 4 if Sam makes this rotation over. Could have a good wall to block him off, sets it up, another wall from Mike, and they're going to be able to find the damage, but not the kill as of yet. PandaCat goes up into the ult, misses every shot, and inbound walks away here. That shield coming in handy. Maybe that Sunder on the other side, not quite as much to be used to burst the shield away there. Ghosts still have their first blood, but they could have at least turned it up a dial there by killing off inbound.
Definitely should have. I don't think it was the lack of Sunder. Mike just missed the freeze, and it's tough whenever they're fast and you are slow, as is the case for Nike Ultimate, but Mike still certainly has to land that one if they're going to end up killing him. Feels pretty bad to expend a blink in the case of Captain Twig, really his only mobility option at all, and inbound stole the red and still didn't get him.
Man, they're looking for that kill onto Twig. You had mentioned the fact that they are just going to go ahead and, well, try to utilize the fact that he didn't have that mobility, but it didn't work out there. Now Ducky maybe finds himself in a bad spot. Gonna spin to win, get some damage down. Twig finds the kill. Wolfie's gonna be trying to fight back alongside Sino. They're gonna get in, get rid of the Anubis, but are they gonna be able to get out? Away from Fino-K, away from Sam. Sino, you're not gonna last long this time around. They still pick up another 2 for 1 here in favor of Ghost Gaming, and they seem to be quite fine trading Twig for any amount of kills they could get.
Don't know if Twig needed to commit as heavily with the body on where he needed to be there. Probably could have dropped the 3 a little bit earlier and walked back under the tower. Maybe Wolfie ults him either way, but a little bit of hesitation made it pretty easy for Wolfie to get the cleanup.
Well, at this point, I feel like, except for that one, that's the first time this set that I can say not a great wall from PBM that comes through to try and dodge it. Although at
just
that
drop
point,
him, I guess.
he's, what, 1 in 20? So, oh man, I don't know. That 90%, that's bad math. But either way, that's going to be able to come through. Still looks good for him on terms of walls.
Listen, think of it this way, though. What have you done for me lately? Mike's last wall kind of stunk. And maybe they should be looking for new supports. That's all I'm saying. You know?
Yeah, you're right.
0% of his recent walls were great. So what's the point of... Ymir stinks. What's the point of picking this guy?
Make PBM's walls great again. That's all we're looking for here, as we can continue moving forward with it. Although, that's actually the thing I was going to say. If you were Ghost, at this point, if I were going to try and make a meme video out of this set, it would be a montage of Sam's walls and PBM's walls, and then us constantly just saying, great wall, right? It's almost free content at that point, because it's happened so much for what's been going on. It's nice to actually see that he is mortal. He's not just a god that is among men here, and is able to make mistakes like the rest of us. But I don't know if that's going to stop him. One bad wall, even though, like you said, 0% of those recent walls connecting. Even here, for Sam, 0% of those recent stuns connecting. Still makes me a little nervous for Obey.
They absolutely should be. Look, Obey is in a good enough spot, but the fact that Freya again has a level lead, Wowie has no beads because of Sam's gank on the left-hand side, all that pretty spooky.
Looking for Sino, not going to be able to connect there. 2 dashes for Nemesis makes things nice, but look at inbound once again. He's jumping right into the Lion's Den. They're waiting for you there. Twig even throws out the ult just for the sake of it, loses his life in the process, but Sino brought back into it. The explosion from Ymir, not a lot of damage. The slow is going to provide a lot, but again, those double dashes help get you out of there. King Arthur goes into Wolfie, forces the beads. They're hiding under their tier 2 tower. Ducky coming in though, fine, saved by a wall. It's going to be Ducky overextending, goes in, great ult to pull in 2, and Wolfie's going to be able to clean up the solo laner here for Ghost. Fine, okay, has to sit in timeout for about 30 seconds. Well, felt like it could have been good turnaround several times there for Ghost. It's getting flipped on its head, another good wall from PBM, but this time it's to keep him safe instead of set up any kills. And even then, well, he's going to be fine. It looked like Sino might have wanted to loop around there and potentially find him in the back of that tier 1 tower. Either way, Obey still walked away happy.
Just an overdive by Ghost. Got a little bit too happy to try and kill Sino, who really uses mobility very effectively in the midst of that team fight. He's found himself a slight level lead, even though Sam is 3-0-2, been a part of all 5 Ghost Gaming kills. Really just inbound, caught in the bit of no man's land. Did not get the memo on where the rest of his team was and where Ghost Gaming really could be.
Well, if you asked him, Fine OK wouldn't remember that he just died from being aggressive because he's already doing it again. Looks to try and fight a 2v1. Honestly, still almost walks away with a kill. Sino, no health, no mana. Still able to make it back to base and stay alive this time. But I think that's the merits that Ghost Gaming are bringing. This time, last game, we were talking about Obey and how well they were farming. They had gotten the first blood bounty. They were able to maintain about a 1.5 to 2k gold lead over Ghost until about 15 minutes in. It's not the fact this time around, right? I mean, Pyromancer just gets taken by Ghost. That's kind of the, I guess, side fact of Anubis ult is it's real good at shredding objectives, and it feels like they are just more frivolous is the only word I can think of. They don't care about their lives. It almost feels like they are willing to throw everything at Obey just because it's going to yield them something positive.
Really difficult to withstand Obey's objective siege even early on in this game. I mean, Ymir's so good at controlling areas. Anubis ult, some of the best burn in the whole game, but Obey think they can assume that Anubis ult is down.
Well, Mike's already used the freeze, not going to be able to get in there for the Gold Fury, and that's confirmed by Obey. A good ult by Wolfie as well, just to lock him down. Nobody on Ghost able to close the gap there. And so they wanted to see it on the desk. There you go. Wolfie ensuring that his team walks away with that Gold Fury safely. And they pretty much tie this game up. I'm looking at it, and there's, what, a little less than 100, maybe a little over 100 gold now separating these teams as it goes wave to wave.
This is a good opportunity to maybe get ahead on Panda Cat as well. He's down to about half HP, and Wowie has the snipes. That means he's pretty close to kill range.
PBM, no blink. Still waiting 2 levels to see that one come through. Doesn't matter, still has the wall, still has the freeze. The Carpet of Ice not going to do enough here to lock down Inbound. And like you said, without Panda Cat maybe being able to step up, it's not going his way. Good shots from Wowie right through the support this time around. Inbound is flirting with death, but it's going to be Panda Cat who ends up going down. Obey are finding themselves these small picks just to ensure, again, that they're keeping up pace with Ghost Gaming.
Not a good decision by Panda Cat, and good shots by Wowie, but as I said, I mean, Panda's in kill range. 100 or 200 HP before he ends up dying. To not even make Wowie use the ultimate and land everything on you, definitely not an ideal situation. Because that was a strong point for Ghost, is that Wowie was a little bit behind Panda Cat, which really shouldn't be happening in this matchup. Now it feels like he's kind of giving that over.
Well, I saw Sam go up. I was wondering what he was trying to do. The answer was dunk onto Wolfie. Ends up forcing the ult from the Persephone along with the beads. So he does walk away with this advantageous, although maybe a little bizarre of all that. I did not expect him to go in, which gave me a little bit of a chuckle there, Sam. As well as all of Ghost. It kind of feels like this is the playstyle they adopt whenever Twig is on Anubis. I should say that Twig likes to be aggressive no matter what he's playing. We've seen him dash in on Raijin. We've seen him ult in on Hebo first. It's not too surprising to then see him blink in potentially first on something like an Anubis. But it seems like it's starting to infect the rest of Ghost Gaming. And he's convincing Sam to go in. And some of these, not even ridiculous times, but maybe just unoptimal times, right? You're going to go in there, maybe you get the kill, maybe you don't, but what happens if you do, right? Where do you go after that?
Man, I'm a little surprised at the lack of beads pickup here from Twig. I'm sorry, I was so locked in, I don't even know what you said to drop it to me, to be honest with you, Gore, because I was like, I'm thinking about how could you ever live without purification beads against this team composition from Obey. I mean, you've got to use your knock-up immunity on your one in order to get out of Surbalt or your own ultimate. If Wolfie ever just sees Twig and lands in the middle with that ultimate, he should die.
Well, now it's looking like they're trying to save his life. The ult comes through, not burning as much as you would like to if you're Twig there. Gonna get locked down thanks to Wolfie's ult. Twig so low, one more hit gets the kill for Inbound. Now PBM's gonna be locked up, but Sam comes to save the day. Snipe's gonna be great from Wowie, but the dunk going to be enough to find at least one return kill onto the background. Wowie goes down, Wolfie still dead even though he's running around. It's gonna be up to Ducky to see if they can find any more. Sino dies the tower, the shield, enough to keep him alive, and walking out of there, he's gonna stay alive, barely so, but it's only Fine-OK left for Ghost Gaming. He's looking to turn back anything he can find. He's gonna be able to find the support. The fact that Sino stays alive ultimately leaves this in favor of Obey, especially because he's back here still in the speed buff. Sam's not gonna be happy.
Man, Sino's too clean with it, man. These Nem mechs have been really, really solid all day for him. Even in the Game 1 loss, I thought he was playing really, really well mechanically, and that continues here in this one. And we see exactly what I was just talking about with the Anubis and the lack of beads. Inbound gets behind him, throws up the shield, and starts shoving in Twig towards his team. And Twig, what do you do? Like, ask him nicely to stop? That's the game plan? There is no other recourse. You already used your ult. I'm just shocked at the Shell pickup. I mean, Shell good in this game for sure. You won it against the Nemesis, but if you've gotten Blink at level 1, which for the record, I think Twig played well enough around the Blink, didn't really get punished for it very much. I like him going Blink first Relic, very similar to Paul going Blink first Relic on Hebo a lot. But you gotta get beads at 12, Gore. I mean, that should just keep happening for Obey Alliance. Well, anytime Wolfie sees Twig, pull the trigger on the ultimate. Force him to blink out of your ultimate, because if you trap him in the cage, he will die. I don't think there's any way he doesn't.
And Wolfie's been a lot more on point. I was going to make a joke about how most of my gameplay against Nike is asking her to stop. That shield just feels so oppressive when I end up against it. But it does have to come back, I think, to Wolfie, who in the last game was kind of off and on. I don't know the exact amount of ults he threw out, but it feels like he hit maybe half, slightly less over all of them. This game, it feels like each one he's wanted to throw out has been effective in some way, whether it's locking down Twig or opening up the team to disengage like they did around the last Fury. It's actually been really solid from this Persephone. And for her debut for Obey to be a close game where they almost win against Ghost, and then this, I'd say it's a pretty good pick, and at this point, yeah, you probably do need to keep banning it against every team in the SPL. Every mid laner is running it, maybe at different levels, but still well enough that she looks scary.
Trying to get some poke damage right now onto Mike, but Mike kind of gives those the tier 3 plants the quick little two-step, and it's pretty easy to juke those when you know they're coming. Really, Persephone's tier 2 plants are the ones you really have to worry about.
Inbound, once again a wall just off the mark there from Mike. It's the second time I've seen it.
Washed.
But I think those are, honestly, that's going to be more surprising than the walls that are on point, right? Because he's been so good with them lately. But it is causing a little bit of trouble for them. That would have been a kill otherwise. Lockdown onto inbound. They would have been able to start up over here on the Fury. Instead, it's going to be PandaCat forced into his ult just to get away. Still keeps his relics, so he's going to be safe in that regard. So this is a big grouping waiting for the Fury. Sam just a little short, can't quite get the stun he wants. So it feels like Ghost Gaming, at least now, have used 2 ults, more or less to no completion. Haven't been able to find anything with it. No Bay. They're going to take the note, start up the Oni Fury. Inbound jumps into the back, finds a nice big slow. The shield going to get eviscerated. Twig looking for the damage, but it doesn't matter. They're going to be going in on the Fury. Oni Fury goes the way of Obey, but Obey lose 2 members in the process, looking to make it 3. If Sino can't make it out of this one alive, the dash can only get you so far. They chase you down. The PandaCat finds a double kill. Wolfie, he's out of there. Wowie, he's out of there. It seems to be a lot at the end of these fights where those 2 stay alive. And so now I have to ask you, worth or not?
Oh no, not even close to worth here for Obey, because they're likely going to lose fire. Both Inbound and Ducky kind of resigned themselves to dying for that Gold Fury, which is right on the border of worth it, probably still not. Sino then makes a very bad decision to go forward and chase out Finoke, who was trying to just make sure that no one could step up to help the front line of Obey end up getting escorted out. Sino makes a very bad call to step forward, and that is what opens up this Fire Giant easily for Ghost Gaming.
Yeah, it's a lose 1, get 2 deal here for Ghost. They don't get the Oni Fury, and oh, they're crying all the way home about it with all of the gold they had in their pockets. The Fire Giant and now the Pyromancer. It's going to help them get back into the game. They're not worried, I think, one bit, as that gold lead was very slightly in favor of Obey just a second ago. Now it's back in favor of Ghost Gaming, about 2,000 gold. And we're getting to that point. I mean, I'm looking at Anubis specifically because a lot of these other builds are very similar. What you called out for Sino, you wanted to see, it's there. But the Bancross talent, the Typhon's thing, the Spear, the Magus now picked up for this Anubis. While that lifesteal, thanks to Sino, is going to be stifled a little bit, it still feels like it's going to be pretty oppressive. And Twig, his no bead strat at this point kind of feels like he'll just try to live through it if he can.
He's going to try and just fight his way out, punch your way out of any situation, which is what you've got to do anyways on Anubis, so I suppose it can work. Inbound's gotten a little caught, but not as caught as Sino. That is what Anubis does better than any character in the whole game.
And at that point, you don't care that your ult's gone, you got the kill you needed, you still have some damage to come through, and that stun is what's going to be able to hit. Sino as well, being out of this fight, is going to end up hurting them. Finoke locked down by Wolfie under the tier 2, and Wowie is going to be able to help find that kill, but Twig is not relenting in his pressure. Finally, as the team grouping up and coming to help him out, that's going to be a stun from Sam, looking to lock down Wolfie. The double tap going to be just enough from him at the tail end of the hit. Locks down Wolfie, finds themselves the 3rd kill under this Fire Giant. They look to turn around. There's still 2 towers standing in this lane, so probably going to go take some of the objectives before they start diving Phoenixes.
They've got a lot of gold to take here, Gore. They're only up about 4K. Say only, it's just 21 minutes into the game, but with the pace of this one, it feels like it could have been more. These towers don't fall fast, so for Ghost, they don't have a traditional hunter.
Now you're going to see where the defense can come through, and why Sino's a good target to get rid of. Jumps in, Twig's dead before you can blink. Polar Bear Mike follows him just afterward. The Cat's looking to fight back, and he has Sam. Good stun. Looks like they could have locked down Ducky, just not enough CC between the 2 of them to ensure that kill. And like you said, I mean, even with the Fire Giant, no traditional hunter, maybe hurting them on the tower sieges, it's still just under, actually now 3K is the gold lead Ghost Gaming have, as Obey keep finding ways to fight back in.
Really does feel like that's going to be the main weakness of this Ghost comp, is that they need to kill just about everybody in order to make these Phoenix Sieges easy. You think back to their last composition, instead of the Anubis, they had something like Heimdall in mid, instead of Arthur, who is really, really bad at pushing Phoenixes because of his very low attack speed that you can't boost up. You had a set which could threaten a Phoenix split push all by himself and be really scary in those moments. King Arthur, very hard to kill, but you could also just kind of ignore him if he's split pushing on a Phoenix, because it's going to take him so long to do it. This Ghost Gaming team needs to get 3, 4, 5 dead Obey members before they're going to be able to start taking Phoenix's leads.
I mean, at this point, they're still trying to get just a tier 2, right? I mean, they almost all in that left side, and they aren't able to get it. So that's really where I think their initial focus is going to be. And that's the interesting thing. I mean, 22 minutes in, yeah, there's 3,000, 4,000 gold that's separating these two teams. But on the map, it's only 3 tier 1 towers. It's really not a lot that's in favor of Ghost that makes that big difference. Tier 1s, at least in my mind, at 23 minutes, kind of don't exist for a team that gets Fire Giant. So Obey, arguably in this, I mean, technically it slows you down because you have to go back and take that objective, but realistically, that's just a little bit more gold that they can pick up that Ghost doesn't have available on the map. And then, depending on the way things go, they can just run it down to still find a Phoenix, and maybe a little bit easier. Fortunately, they lose a Primal Fury in the process, but they look to be setting up for something a little bit bigger over here on the right side. Fire Giant's going to come back in about 30 seconds.
Easy tier 1 for Obey, like them just grouping up, staying away from where they assume Ghost will be, and getting some global gold for themselves. And you're right that there is a lot of gold on the map for Obey Alliance, and they have a much better time spreading out, getting objectives like towers very easily, because Nem is such a good pusher and killer of towers with her auto attack canceling and a more auto attack based build like Sino is gone. Problem is you got to earn that first, and that requires you winning a down 5k team fight around an objective that now Ghost is less threatened by. They now deal more damage to the Fire Giant and take less damage from it, courtesy of that primal buff they just secured.
Well, now that they're in position, feels like a good time to preface the next fight with the fact that Ghosts have won every set against Obey as a 2-0. So Obey are looking to try and change their fate this time around and hold on to it. But like you said, you have to win a 5k deficit fight against Ghost Gaming. It's not necessarily something any team in the SPL would, volunteer to step up to that challenge. There are definitely some, though, that would love to have the opportunity to try and win it. Now is going to be the chance here for Obey. Wolfie, though, looks to get melted down, stays alive thanks to the Aegis. Sam comes down to the back line looking for something, but they lose their own mid laner in the process. Twig goes down after getting the ult out of there. Ducky looking for the Stygian Torment, able to find one. He's going to move him around, but it's only helping to reposition the rest of the team. Panda Cat gets separated from him. Sam for Soccer goes down. So far, 3 for 2 in favor of Obey as they continue to chase down. Inbound is low, but so is PBM. And that Ymir's fallen a lot faster than this Nike. Now it's all up to FineOK to turn something around, and we've seen him pick up 1 kill in this kind of scenario, but in a 1v3, that's a lot to ask for anybody. You had called for them to win a fight. It seems like Obey are going to be able to do exactly that and put themselves right back in this.
Obey does it easily there. Really great team fight from them. Wolfie gets really split off and focused pretty heavily, but that's the thing, is that when you're focusing on Persephone, she can still contribute in a lot of these fights. Obey just get into the back line, and what do you know, they insta-kill Captain Twig before he can be a factor.
Well, they're going to be able to come in. FineOK's looking for the kill on the Wowie, trying to stop the most important member from getting this Fire Giant buff. He's not able to lock it down. Ducky doing just enough to peel. He's still so close to finding it, but FineOK just ends up finding himself in a 3v1. Wowie survives. Maybe he accomplishes a secondary task. He doesn't get the kill, but that Fire Giant is still standing. It wasn't free for Obey, and nobody has it, which opens up Ghost to maybe come in and scoop it up in some of the downtime.
And Wowie has to use both relics, even though he survives. Fine stops Obey from getting a Fire Giant. Definitely that's his job in that moment. Is not to live. It's not to be farming blue buff as the Fire Giant sound goes off and go, oh, nothing I could have done. He stops them from doing it. But now it's on the 4 remaining members of Ghost for the next 20 seconds to return the favor and stop Obey from doing it once more.
Well, Blink's available there for Twig. Ult is up as well. Sam, he's in the sky. Where is he going to go? Good wall looking to separate Obey. It's going to be inbound right now. Who's going too deep, but no Sunder means that shield's going to be good. Twig ends up eating his life bar. Same thing there for Panda Cat. FineOK now respawning. It's going to take him a little while to get back into this fight to help anybody, especially because Sam's on the other side of the map running away from Sino, and there's 2 dashes available for that Nemesis. Good wall and a good stun. It's going to be able to at least create some space between you. How long and how far can you run? The blink used by Sino, looking for the slow, the beats come out, but ultimately you still get the kill. PBM's in the neighborhood. He's just going to go ahead and back off, and well, hey, it's not necessarily the same 1v4 it was last time, but FineOK finds himself once again in this position to try and defend the Fire Giant. The question is, what can he do when all members of Obey turn to look at him? He's losing his health faster than you would imagine. They're just shredding through this Arthur. He's chased out of there, and this is starting to look a little free. I don't know, PBM is hanging out. I just don't know if he's going to get here in time.
No, this time it's not worth anyone's trying to step up, and that means all 5 members of Obey get it. Listen, we talk about Anubis' weaknesses all the time. He has to stand still in order to get his damage off. But what's the worst that could happen standing still when they've got, oh yeah, a Rom on the other team who now gets to land all 3 of his ult shots for free, and Twig is just trying to jam damage into a shielded inbound with Thorns. Not going to work out that well. I just don't think that this Anubis pick against what Obey has, again, without the beads to reposition and pick his spots a little bit better, has been good enough to work out for Ghost.
Now it's going to be the Phoenix that's just getting shredded by Obey, but they're going to go in a little bit deeper. Good snipes once again from Wowie. Gets Panda Cat 1 hit away from dead. The ult's going to keep him alive, but not for long. Inbound hits the last hit. Twig's already down. FineOK just now respawning, but it's going to be Sam who comes in. Wowie has a double kill, but Sam is looking to pull back anything and everything in his power to set this up. Wowie finds himself a triple, looking for a 4th if he can find it here on the FineOK. Obey looking to barrel into the Titan room. They don't have any minions, although it's just delayed before they get here. FineOK looking to perform a miracle and try and stop this one, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Obey take game number 2. They break the streak, and they forced Ghost Gaming into a 3rd game.
Wow, you can tell Wowie's feeling it, man, and for good reason. 11-1 for him, a fantastic game on this Rama. Yeah. And I feel like that's a pick that you've just got to try and put a little bit more priority on. Panda Cat on that Freya did not feel particularly impactful in this game. He was good enough in game 1, but I still don't think it was that impressive to me in game number 1 to really warrant taking it again in game number 2. And I really think that if Ghosts just have a traditional hunter there for Panda Cat in game 2, they might have snowballed this game off that initial Fire Giant. But because they don't have someone who can actually take structures, they don't get as much gold as they easily could have if they would have something like a Ram on their side in order to take down those towers. They left a lot of gold on the map after that Fire Giant, and then Obey just made play after play after play in order to claw themselves back in. And they just out-team fought Ghost 3-4 times in a row.
They unfortunately got bounced back at the one place that they had the most control. They're diving that tier 2 on left, and it feels like that was the final resting point of Ghost, even though they had some decent fights afterward. Well played by Obey. I think, if anything, this is a testament to how much they've improved, since it's only been 2 zeros up to this point, taking Ghost to a 3rd game. And you know what? We'll be able to jump right into that right after this break.
Infatuated by our symmetry. It feels like before now I was only half of me. Thought that I had figured it out, never felt irrationally, but this sense of urgency has me wondering. Thought that I had figured it out, nothing could get through to me, but this kind of chemistry has me wondering. When you're not around it, I was black and white. How come I'm not seeing in color? Lost without you, I can't make it through the night. How come I'm not seeing in
Will Obey do enough to force us to a Game 3? And there's a lot to talk about from this game number 2. Perhaps a bit of a miscalculation from Ghost on the value of this Freya Anubis. But what about Wowie waking up here for Obey and putting in a hell of a performance in Game 2 to help bring this squad all the way here to this third game? Now, Myth, I know we got to be leaning towards Ghost here in this game number 3, but I mean, has Obey made the adjustments? I mean, we gotta, right? We gotta give him some respect for the records of the season they've had. Go ahead. Why has Obey got this locked out?
Look, I mean, clearly the adjustment was all we needed. That was a convincing performance. You said it's a lot to talk about. As far as I'm concerned, it's one syllable. Wowie. That's all it is, man. This guy is popping off. Almost unkilling, only one death, constant participation in kills, rotating throughout the map. He just duo lane diffed Panda Cat. He duo lane diffed P squared, okay? That's all I gotta say, because he absolutely does it. You could say, sure, the Anubis is standing still, so it's easy to land the ROM auto attacks. Or Freya's a late-game scaler, so he had an easy time in lane, but, shut up.
That sounds right.
Well, he's nuts. No, none of that. We don't care about any of that. It's Obey's time now, and every individual piece is improved as well. Inbound on this Nike, I mean, it was a question mark. I was throwing it out as a meme. But he looks incredibly good on this pick as well, just finding pressure in mid, keeping his team survivable, separating the backline incredibly well. Sino's mechanics on this Nemesis shine bright like a diamond. I mean, like, everything's sick. We love it. Let's go, Obey.
Yeah, 11-1-8. That is a scoreline you typically see reserved for players like Panda Cow, but Wowie's showing he's always had the potential there and bringing out in a game where they needed him to absolutely step up. And I think Aggro kind of hit on what was critical here in this one, because yes, Obey did come back and win this, but they had to come back. Ghosts were sitting with a 4, 5, 6K gold lead right around there, and just as he said, they had trouble expanding that lead the same way teams normally do when they get Fire Giant, when they give big team fight advantages, and they should be shoving down structures, getting that lead off the map, and then putting the game out of reach. They weren't able to do this, and Obey were able to just straight up out team fight them those last few times they walked up. Were able to outclass Ghost because maybe they were struggling a bit with this Anubis, with this Freya, to get that consistent damage out.
Yeah, it seemed like they just didn't really know how they wanted to approach each one of these team fights individually. Polar Bear Mike was finding a couple really good engages, but it seems like Panda Cat was just slightly separated in the backline very often. Samper Soccer was playing this solo agent role, and he looks really good on it. 8 and 4 is the slash line for the Thor, but that's Samper Soccer. That's the best player in the league, so, you know, that's par for the course as far as I'm concerned. I think that now Ghost might need to put a little bit more respect on this picks and bans phase. We know that they like the Anubis, but I'm not going to meme on it anymore. The Anubis certainly struggled. Freya, I mean, if you've got one of the strongest duo lanes in the entire scene, you might as well play around the pressure that you know that you're able to get on it. Put Panda Cat on something that's able to fight a little bit more so in the early game. If you're a Ghost fan, don't concern yourself too much. If you're an Obey fan, we're going to win, so that's how it works.
Now, I am contractually obligated to bring up Dardez's name when you mentioned best player in the league, because Dardez and Sam should be 1A and 1B in my mind. Hey, I'm sorry, we got to give junglers the credit, I know, but hey, I think that's somewhere written down somewhere. I got to at least bring him up. But you are right, man. Sam is going to be consistent for this team. It's up to Ghost to try and get Twig onto something where he can form a little bit more consistently. The Poseidon has been looking great for him when he comes down to that as a fallback for the Habois, so I don't see any reason why they couldn't go to a pick like that. And then this is now twice in a row that they've given up on this ROM to willingly give Panda Cat the Freya later on. I think maybe we see enough to go, okay, this Freya pick is struggling a little bit after all these nerfs she's got.
Yeah, I think, if anything, we might even see Ghost go ahead and take that first pick slot and go towards the ROM for themselves, but they can address this just about anywhere that they want, and it is going to be Ghost in that first pick slot, which should shift up the ban phase a little bit. I think that it's going to give you the opportunity to look for those targeted bans if you so choose. If you know that the ROM is overperforming in both games of the set so far, put Panda Cat on it. This guy is certainly going to look good. I think this is a nice adjustment from Ghost.
Yeah, and maybe they don't even have to ban the Cupid, right? There's a couple ways they could approach this. If your idea is taking away the Cupid limits Wowie, well, then that's been blown out of the water, right? Because he can clearly play the ROM at just a high level, if not even better. But so far, it looks like some similar things are being banned. The Habois from Twig, that's been their all set. The Ra from Ghost, they're taking that, trying to take that away from Wolfie, that's been their all set too. But now a slightly earlier Arachne ban as they look to limit Sino even further. So Ghost are changing things up at least a little bit here in the first pick position.
And this Arachne ban, it's consistent for Ghost. They really do put a lot of respect on Sino's Arachne in the jungle. We haven't seen it have too much success at the SPL level. I'm a little bit concerned that this might be a bit of a throwaway ban, but Ghost obviously knows what they're doing. They play Smite with the absolute best of them. And that is a small adjustment. Romban coming through from Ghost here instead of the Cupid. Cupid being Wowie's signature pick. But it seems like Ghost has primed themselves to pick the Cupid for themselves if they so choose. If they do pass on it, you know Obey's going to it.
Yeah, because now they're in a spot where even if they do take the Cupid, maybe they're worried about giving this Amir over to Bobby for the first time this set, which they have been stripping away. In fact, I think a Thor Amir feels pretty good for Obey as the response, since they know how much Ghosts have really been valuing it, right? Get Ducky that Thor over into solo, that could flex to Sino, but hey, we know he wants to play some kind of warrior, and then give that Amir down to inbound. I think that would not be a bad response here at all, as Ghosts do obviously go ahead and take this Cupid.
But instead, it's going to be a Nemesis first overall for Obey, consistent with what we've seen. And if Sino's going to play like he did in Game 2, you won't catch me arguing with it. But I would like to see the Ymir that you highlighted get picked up here. We know that Ghost has it, that PBM's really been performing on it, and I think that it's one of the picks that Inbound looks best on. You might as well take it for yourselves before it gets stripped away. So I would love to see it. But there are other options. You don't have to immediately look towards your Guardian. Persephone for the third time. And you know what? We kind of glazed over it, but Wolfie in Game 2 looked much, much better on this Persephone, finding proactive plays, finding early game grasp of deaths. I think that it's a strong pick, but it does open them up towards one of the highest pressure duo lanes in the game. Now, Ghost could pick up the Ymir for themselves, which pairs so well with the Cupid.
It does. I mean, you know, I hate to beat a dead horse, but now Thor Amir looks just as good. But on the other side for Ghost here, if that is the route they want to go, but they do instead go to this Awelish. And here's the thing about how good Sam's been playing on this Awelish, chat. Here's the thing. He's been playing really, really well on this Awelish, running over games the second that they start. Thank you, Miff, for being my audience here for him, because I doubt anyone else is laughing. But this Awelish has been dominant here for him, and there is a small leap there to try and get a benefit from here, from this Persephone. I think this Awelish could be dominant from level 2 on.
Yeah, so here's the thing about Awelish. The Feather Step, I coined it the level 6 execute because it does so much damage when paired with her passive that you can really play the solo agent role incredibly early on. Awelish is one of the best junglers in the ranked sense, in that you could absolutely dominate a game completely on your own and just pair it with a couple other knockups on your team, or you can use it to detract from the enemy team, make them not want to take any sort of jumps themselves. But it is going to be the Jing Wei, so that's going to be some free food for the gravity surge there from Obey. I think that this Awelish pick can work out absolutely, especially because we know who's piloting it. It's Sam for Soccer 2, Sam for Sociopath, Sam for First Blood, whatever you want to call him. This dude's an absolute legend, so putting him on something that can drive the bus early on, I love it.
Hey, Sam's a nice guy. Don't put that on his name, but certainly capable of being a killer on the battleground, man. Someone that'll come for you if you're not careful. Now, this Jingwei does come in here for Obey to provide some safety for Wowie, and I think we've kind of forgotten that Jingwei's late game actually is potent if she does want to build that crit build. We've seen that come through a little bit more lately. We've seen the Rages, the Wind Demons, the Fail Nots, the Deathbringer start to come back through when Jingwei is let in, so don't be surprised if some crit comes. Now, if Ghost does end up with something like a Kuzenbo on their side, they have a good answer to it, but I think this Jingwei might be in a good spot to have a good game here this time around.
Yeah, especially considering that there's likely going to be another squishy pickup, as we know the mid laner hasn't been selected yet, or it could be a Cupid flex towards mid, but that's pretty unlikely. Final K's Godpool has been stretching a little bit on that squishy side as well, which would fit well for this Jingwei to pick up some crit. But with the bans coming through as they are, the first huge adjustment of the set, Hell and Oleron being banned out by Obey, trying to take out those pretty high-pressure, late-game ticking time bombs, and then Ghost deciding to take some bans towards Bobby, the Sobek, and the Ymir here. Seems like Kuzenbo makes his way through one more time. I'd be surprised if Bobby doesn't try and pick it up.
Yeah, me too. I think this would be a great fit for him in a world where 4 supports at minimum have been taken away, but I guess we're forgetting that Nike popped off last game. Remember, First Blood should have been Bobby, but he leveled up the leap, got away from it. There was another time where he should have fallen over to the left lane and escaped. He has some survivability on this Nike, and I think is huge for him. I think it was off of, not inbound, but PBM, excuse me, not completely locking down the CC the right way, but inbound was able to make it out of there. Maybe he can run that back here again with this Nike support.
Yeah, I wonder how this happens. Maybe like backstage in comms, like they lose a set. Sino says something along the lines of, "Hey, Bobby, Nike's sick, dude. Like, you seen me doing this stuff? Like, you do it too." And Bobby says, "Okay," but the Poseidon getting locked in for Twig, one of his best picks for sure. The mobility coming through, the Do More build is just expanding on his damage so much in the early game, as well as just adding on to the mobility from his passive. I think that it's really a fitting pick for this draft in particular as well. Cerberus has fantastic setup for the Kraken. Oh, even a Willix Feather Step is just enough time for you to put a Whirlpool right under their feet. And then Amaterasu coming in 9th pick overall. Is that allowed?
No, it just straight up shouldn't be, should it, Miff? I mean, and it's not just Amaterasu going to any old bum off the street.
Okay.
This is fine, okay,
Yep.
absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Picking up this arm in the 9th spot, so that is certainly frightening. Now, Wukong, a great response from Ducky over on the other side, but now you get Twig on a god with great all-in potential like this Poseidon, an ability to play into that jungle mentality that he brings in the mid-roll, flanked by this Amaterasu to help provide the support, and you better not try to leap away or this Wheelish will have no response for you. I think this is certainly scary, this draft that Ghosts now have at their disposal.
Look, if you're going to sing the praises of a Ghost draft, I'm going to go the other way. We got to talk about what Obey's going to do well. Grasp of Death, Persephone's a permaban. This god is so incredibly strong, and anyone who gets CC'd out immediately is going to have their defense stripped by this Nemesis. Nike having the survivability in the early game, which is traditionally where Inbound struggles, can also force Mike into picking up a Sunder early on, which is what we saw in Game 2. Sun Wukong has been on a huge resurgence out of the solo lane, an absolute menace in the back line. I don't care how fast you are on Poseidon, you're not outrunning a literal bird. I think both squads got away with a pretty strong draft.
I think so too. Wukong has probably moved up to that 2nd place spot in solo, so you're right to highlight his value. Game number 3 between Ghost and Obey. Let's go ahead and kick it off.
Thanks so much once again, and I guess one last time, Finch, as we jump into game number 3 here. And Aggro, I'm going to throw out some team names. Radiance, Renegade, Sanguine. They all have one thing in common, in that they are the only 3 teams here in Phase 2 that have been able to beat Ghost Gaming. Obey, looking to potentially join their ranks, depending on how this game goes. Out of the draft, they get a lot of the same comfort picks they've had all set. Is this the game they can do it? Do they actually have the chance?
I think Obey certainly does. I mean, Sino's played so well on this Nemesis. Wolfie really turned up on this Persephone in the last game, as did Inbound on the Nike, but I love the adjustments Ghost has made. I mean, PBM on one of his signature picks in the Cerberus, Sam on one of his, right now in the Awilish. I love that PandaCat has gone to the Cupid, that they prioritize a traditional hunter first overall for him, and Twig might just be the best Poseidon player the SPL's ever seen. He's done it in every role that he's played, which is mid and jungle, just always been a consistent Poseidon player. So this is a scary draft if you're Obey Alliance. I think that you've got your work cut out for you still.
Do you think there was a lot of discussion having to talk Twig down from running back the Anubis? And as a true salty runback, like furious that it didn't go so well and convinced that maybe it could happen? I don't know. It feels like this Poseidon has been right in his wheelhouse. Feels like Inbound has been feeling himself as well on this Nike. Went well last time for him. And doesn't seem to be as scared of the Cerberus as he was the Emir. And honestly, I think that's warranted. This Warrior should be able to at least control PBM a little bit here in the early game, right?
Absolutely. It's nowhere near as scary of a matchup. Ymir just brings so much more instant CC and damage over the course of his auto attacks. Cerberus does a lot of damage, don't get me wrong, but it is not Ymir level. No one is in the support role. It's what makes Ymir really unique and worth picking in a lot of compositions, is how strong that early game is.
Well, it's up to PandaCat, it's up to PBM, it's up to a lot of members of Obey. Of Ghost here to try and turn things up for themselves. There's so many little matchups, I think, that are going to make the big difference. Persephone versus the Poseidon. Even Persephone has looked pretty good here for Wolfie. Sino comfortable on this Nemesis, but the Wheelish over there for Sam, something that has been almost only played by him, and actually maybe only played by him throughout all of this. And while there maybe isn't a huge ton of synergy you're looking for with Sam and knockups on his team, he's got things like this Cerberus, the Cupid, the Amaterasu, like you had highlighted earlier. It just feels like there's a lot of good on Ghost Gaming. But this Wukong, despite losing stats, I mean, you roll it back a few weeks, it was one of the only things Obey had going for them that looked stellar, and I think Ducky can do a lot on this pick.
Agreed. It's very, very strong right now in the solo lane, but its win rate being low surprises me. I feel like just seeing the eye test of what Wukongs are often able to do. You look at the incredible performance Benji had on that god yesterday in their set. I feel like Wukong is still near the top of the SPL solo lane pool. Probably below Ama. I think that we were talking about whether or not which one of those solo laners was going to prove to be a little bit stronger. Nika, it just kind of dragging Ama to the top, it feels like at times. But I'm kind of willing to forego the who's better between Wukong and Ama convo, but it is still close-ish that Wukong, I think, can't have the same level of impact on a match that Amaterasu can.
As long as he's not playing against Nika, like you said, I think it opens up the conversation. That's one of the funniest things I think that I've had, where everyone on SSG has proclaimed that Nika does not really enjoy having to lock in Amaterasu. In fact, would love if she was banned away, but they win so much on her that he keeps playing it anyway. And I think at this point, he just wants some spice of life over there. The Hunters are constantly getting banned. I mean, look at this. Wow, he's on Jing Wei. We've seen Chernabog played in the last few weeks. It's just... he wants some of the spice that the mid laners and the Hunters seem to be getting. Even the junglers are dipping their toes a little bit further. It does feel like these frontliners are the ones that are stuck having to play more or less some of the same gods. I do say that recognizing that there is a Nike support in this game and in this set, which has not been seen this year. So I think there's a lot of flavor that can come over there. But maybe something to look at as time goes on is going to be Ducky. But, I mean, this duo combo between Sino and Wolfie in the mid lane, it's been working out so well, it kind of feels like they should at least get ahead a little bit and cause a lot of trouble there for Ghost.
Certainly could be. I mean, what we've seen out of Sino and Wolfie in this game, in this set rather, has been pretty impressive. They've been able to go pretty much toe-to-toe with what you've seen out of the Ghost mid-jungle combination. Is we got a snoozy puppy there. I don't know. Mackenzie was behind me, but no longer. She got bored of rolling around on the bed, I suppose. But I just think that Obey, if they're going to be able to win this game and in extension the set, they've got to keep getting Sino into these engagements in really good positions. And he found a really good job of finding those engagements in game number 2 in particular. If we can see more out of that from Sino, I think Obey's got a really good shot.
I'm really excited to see if they are able to kind of open that door for them. Even in game 1, they were starting to trail and fall behind. Things didn't look great, and they still got into the Titan room. It was a questionable Titan call decision. Maybe could have snowballed a little bit more to get themselves in a position to win game 1, and then we'd be done. We wouldn't even be talking here in game number 3. And that, I think, keeps me in this mindset for Obey. Maybe I'm getting won over by Mifflin. Maybe he's just done a lot and he's, digging his nails into my brain. But it does feel, oddly enough, like this is a position where they could, especially because we were, about 5 minutes into into this game and into game 3, before anything really has happened. Normally, we get to game 3s, at least as the last few weeks, and it's just a stomp. From the first minute, you start seeing deaths come out like it's nothing. It'll be 12-1 on the scoreboard, and you'll be like, oh, okay, so we're here again. But I'm actually really excited the fact that it's been slow. I think this favors Obey.
I think it certainly can. I mean, you look at what Ghost composition does. It does group up very, very well. I mean, between the Ama and the Cerberus ults and things like Fields of Love, they're down to take it into the mid to late game and win some 5-on-5s. But Ghost often can just blow you out of the water early on. I think they are the team that is most likely to do that to you. So anytime you get out of the early game and that hasn't happened, feels pretty good for you.
So far, it's been a little bit of a boxing match. Also, I don't know why I feel the need to clarify this now, other than it just popped back into my head, but there are 2 sleeping puppies behind me. Bellini just happens to be in a bed slightly closer, and so she doesn't get the same camera looks. They're tuckered out from the park, just like Ghost Gaming and Obey surprisingly aren't tuckered out from playing through these first 2 games. It feels a little grueling, although I guess if the Knights and Renegades can go 65 minutes, you can put up with another little brawl between the 2. Sam for Soccer is looking to get aggressive. They're going for the invade just to steal away the purple. Not going to have any trouble doing so. I'm a little surprised to see Obey just kind of let that one happen.
No real defense available. Casino's on the right side of the map helping Ducky get that blue, but this is good timing for Ghost because not only purple but red buff here as well, and Sino still on the right side of the map, inbound and left. No chance for them to step up and help. Sino is a little bit ahead of Sam still, so it's not like Obey is going to fall behind from just that alone, but nice little window identified by Ghost.
Looking to get aggressive, good cracking on the inbound. The shield comes out on the other side, though. It's going to be just fine. Sino looking for the ult, found it onto Sam. Is he going to have the follow-up damage? The answer is yes. First blood goes down for Obey, but it's not going to go without an answer. Inbound trades it out, but jungle for support. Obey are happy for that any day.
Absolutely, a very worthwhile trade for Obey, and see the little bit of hesitance. Mike finds a really nice stun. If Kraken would have come out right on top of that Cerberus stun, inbound gets gobbled up, and it's an easy first blood without him having a chance to cast that ultimate. But with the little bit of hesitation from Captain Twig and from Sam, they end up not being able to all in the Nike as effectively as Ghost would have liked, and as a result, it's actually Sam who goes down for the first blood. And then still you get inbound, but who cares? We trade a jungler for support, and the team that killed the jungler got first blood on top of that. Nice little lead developing for Sino because of it.
And it's feeling good again. Not a big lead between these two teams. Honestly, just the first blood bounty really separating them. But it's something for Obey to maybe cultivate there, since Persephone's going to be growing those plants anyway. She maybe spend some of that fertilizer on the gold lead and see if they can continue this. It's also going to matter for the experience. Inbound slightly behind, with Sino slightly ahead. Maybe ends up kind of equalizing. I'm still curious where things are going to pop off. It feels honestly like I'm waiting for the shoe to drop. Like there's a lot of tension in this game that's not quite coming to fruition. Much slower, I believe, than last game. Although the last time I said something like that, we almost immediately ended up seeing about 10 kills within the next 3 minutes. So maybe it's slow for a good reason. Sam's going to go ahead and get aggressive, looking for the kill on Ducky. Doesn't find the knockup. So instead they're going to go for, again, consolation prize. Don't get the kill, try to get the buff. Going to be able to successfully do so there, but can they win the fight just after? They don't even want to. They're just going to go ahead and back off, force Sino to be uncomfortable in his own jungle, and try to steal away the farm they can.
And they will do so successfully. Love the idea from Ghost, because last time on the buff respawns, they were in left. Remember, stealing away purple and red. So this time, Sino's on time, ready to defend purple and red, and nobody's there, because instead Sam is invading blue on the other side, really just moving Sino around the map as they see fit. That allows Sam to catch up a little bit. Love the proactivity from Ghost, and that's a perfect example of why being the team that's setting the pace is better than the team that has to being the team that has to react, because then if the team who's setting the pace decides to go to the opposite side of the map, you can't react to that in that sort of situation. Very, very heads up smite from Ghost.
They've hit that level 5 threshold. Honestly, we're starting to look at level 10s that are coming online, but knowing that those ults are available, especially for someone like PBM, is where I would think some of the conversation, at least in these team fights, would be started. A great, huge, circular ult grabs people, either forces beads or ends up putting them in a very unfortunate position. The Cerberus, it has been very nice overall for Ghost Gaming. I actually believe played exclusively over there in the duo lane for them, at least here in Phase 2. And successful almost every single time, if not every single time. So just a good stat line here for PBM going back to this pick. And you had already mentioned alongside the Poseidon, I mean, this is just a good old classic kind of 1-2 Smite Wombo combo if you get everything lining up for you.
Makes it very easy for Poseidon to get kills even without using the Kraken. Poseidon's damage without it, oftentimes hard to confirm. The heavy slow coming from Ghastly Breath alongside the Prot Shred makes it awfully easy for Twig to be effective.
Well, live fact-checking myself. Yeah, they're 5 for 5 with Cerberus game. See if they can make it 6 for 6. Good crack in there for Twig. It's going to be a disengage, but it leaves everyone on Obey just low enough for the rest of Ghost to come in. Sam's going to be able to pick up one. Can he chase down another? It's going to be difficult, but he finds the knock-up onto Wolfie. And the pool coming down from Poseidon is just enough to make sure they set that up. Gold Fury started by Ghost Gaming, and it looks like Obey, save for Wolfie, who's already dead, are just going to go ahead and let this one be.
Really great positioning from Sam in that team fight. Just gets around the back, does something that he often only does come late game, but pre-pops the gravity surge. Doesn't use it as the pull-in or anything like that, just uses it as a big power stim and attack speed stim that when he gets into the back line, no one's going to be able to handle the burst, and that's exactly what happens. Sino is an easy cleanup kill, and then Wolfie with a boost speed situation definitely should not have gotten caught by that. I don't think I probably can't assume that he lives just based on Sam's movement speed and being able to hop on Suku eventually coming around the back of that, but to lose the beads and die in that spot, definitely not ideal. He's now down 2 levels to Twig, who gets to power farm that whole time, gets 3 assists throughout, and is now going to be awfully strong coming back to lane with nearly a full item over Wolfie.
And that's something we don't get to see often there from Sam. I mean, how many times, I think just in Smite in general, have you gotten to see an Awelish not go for the pull-in on Herald? I think I can count them all on one hand, at least for me. And so that's heads up from Sam. I wonder if we'll see more of that as the game goes on, specifically because, again, there's not that many knockups on his side to combo with. Right now, though, they're looking to combo it in. Obey maybe biting off more than they can chew. Ducky up onto the Somersault Cloud, and it's going to be inbound into the backline onto Twig. Comboed with Wolfie looking for something. Kraken just trying to peel, but there's no peel in that. 3 members of Obey jump in and eat the Poseidon like a shark. They still trade out Wolfie in the process. You're end up for 1-for-1 trade. Ducky just narrowly making it out of this one, but he's still alive, so he still counts.
Inbound has to be concerned about this ultimate coming from Sam. PBM has no ult, but Inbound can now no longer jump away or else he's subject to instant death. Probably worth at least making Sam use it in that spot, because you die if you don't jump anyways, so probably worth jumping, but he might have not even had the cooldown up. Just a good chase down from Ghost. I love the moment where Sam and Twig are both playing like assassins. Within the last year, they've both been junglers, so I guess it does make some sense. But then Twig gets nailed by the Persephone ultimate, and Sam kind of looks at him like, man, wouldn't want to be you. Anyways, see ya, and just instantly leaves him. Twig is all alone in the backline, gets killed by Inbound, and eventually Ducky coming in. So that's, I feel Twig's pain in that moment for sure, as he is left to the wolves, but for good reason. Ghost knows they can win the team fight so easily on the other side that even if they lose Twig, it won't matter.
Well, in last game, we were talking about the burn that Ghost had around these objectives. That Poseidon with the Kraken brings a lot of secure for things like a Fire Giant, a Fury, at any point in time. Well, the Panda Cat right now is the one who's in a little bit of trouble. He has the team rotating in. Fields of Love going to go down to try and help create some space for him, but it's not going to be in time. Might not even be able to find it. Their pathing puts him behind the tower. Sino gets the sprint from Inbound as well, just to create as much space between him and Ghost. Even though I was highlighting it, I don't think we're going to get to see that Kraken come through here in this team fight. Maybe around that Oni Fury, maybe around a Fire Giant as we are coming into the 15-minute mark.
Twig really staying true to the dual roots. Last game doesn't go any Purification Beads, which is a classic move in duel. Now he's gone Sunder on the Poseidon, knowing that he's going to be the one dealing with Inbound in his face a whole lot. Maybe they felt like they didn't get a whole lot of value out of the Sunder in Mike's inventory last game, because Mike often was in a different part of the fight than Inbound was. Hand it over to Twig. Let him be the one to break that shield. As Twig, I thought, was going to go something like Breastplate of Valor, as is pretty usual. Contagion is interesting. I think it's maybe he's trying to deal with the healing from Ducky's Soul Eater, is my guess. Feel like I'd rather just have the utility of the CDR for Breastplate of Valor. There's not enough healing on Obey's composition to make me think that that's really worth it for Twig. If he's going to go a Breastplate defense item, I think Breastplate would have been a little bit better for him.
Yeah, you can go ahead and color me confused on that one as well. But, hey, if it helps with some of the lifesteal, helps with some of the Soul Eater, maybe that's all he needs. Again, trying to fight, like you said, an assassin's game, but as a mage, might be a little difficult. Maybe it's just enough to keep him going. Either way, we'll have to keep our eyes on Twig, just to make sure, we'll see how it goes for him, right? And we judge him towards the end of the game, as right now they still lead in terms of kills. About 3,000 gold in their favor, with this Oni Fury spawning up. Kraken, available. Fields of Love, available. Like all the ults that you would want around an objective even for Ghost Gaming. It's up. But this has been where Obey, at least in Game 2, were really able to help find some interesting picks. Force Ghost into weird positions, have a good ult from Wolfie. And so I'm wondering if we'll get to see some more of that, or if Ghost are going to try to sneak this out.
Should be all on Twig's Kraken. It won't do as much as we're probably expecting based on this contagion, but that should be the starting point.
Oh, a beautiful two-man stun comes out from PBM, but it's not enough to lock down Sino. He still just barely skirts out of that one alive, and so the Nemesis out of the fight for this one. 4v5 for Obey. Blinken coming in from Ducky as he's trying to come in and lock it down. Ghost Gaming get themselves the Oni Fury. Can they get out with their lives is the follow-up question. Ducky's on the Somersault Cloud. Everyone on Ghost is just around half health, but it seems like that's enough for them. They get in, they get out alongside that Oni Fury.
Man, Mike a little bit quiet at points in game number 2, but now equally loud in game 3 as he was in the opener of our SPL day today. 2-0-3, double stunning people with Cerberus is pretty much unheard of. That just does not happen very often, but he's having himself another great game. Level 13 already.
Well, Twig, unfortunately, existed in that moment. Obey decided that he needed to stop, and so they do exactly that. I mean, all 4 members that are over here on the right-hand side of the map, I guess there's not much to be found over there on the left side anymore, so they are able to pick up that kill as much as they want to, and as free as they want to, because they're not even going to have to pay for it. Although, maybe not exactly in kills, they are paying for it in terms of a tier 1. Panda Cat, you had called for it, but he's over here comfortable on this physical hunter, and Wolfie loses his life. So maybe I spoke too soon over here about what they were trading for killing off Twig. PBM able to find a kill. Now inbound in trouble thanks to Sam as he blinks in. Sino left just a little late, and maybe not even going to be able to escape. Has to use the beads to get away from PBM's ult. He stays alive for now, but it seems like Ghost are ready to pick a fight anywhere and anytime.
Yeah, this is not a good look for Obey. This is what Ghost does better than most teams in the entire league. Maybe they probably are the best at it, is they just start trying to take ISO plays against you and then beating you one-on-one. When your mid laner is the same level as their support, Wolfie just... Here I go on my soapbox. I just can't help it, man. When Guardians get the same level as you in like timing like this in the mid game, Mike does more damage than Wolfie is capable of doing and is tanky at the same time, whereas Wolfie is clearly not. He's very, very squishy, and Mike chased him down, killed him underneath his own tier 2, and then gets the beads out from Sino at the exact same time, just imposing his will on the map right now. Look at where he is in the player damage charts. He's 3rd overall, nearly at the top. He's not that far behind even the Wukong, which just feels like it pumps out damage like very few can.
Yeah, keeping up with the solo laners is difficult because almost all they do is fight each other, and that's where some of that damage comes from. They're so far ahead half the time because they're boxing so much over there. Being able to, again, not only keep pace, but keep finding objectives on top of that. Ghost Gaming have turned that lead into something huge. We were talking about Obey maybe cultivating a small lead, but now it's, what, 6,000, 7,000 starting to lean over in favor of Ghost Gaming. And the most they're able to do is this over and over again. It's lockdown Twig. Even this time, they're not able to do so successfully. They get his beads, though, so maybe there's some merit to that gank. Just at the end of the day, they've only been able to consistently get 1 kill, and it's always been on this Poseidon.
That's the usual Ghost MO, right? I mean, everyone else is doing really well. Twig's scoreline looks bad, and they win. That's kind of the usual for them, it feels like. Maybe a little bit different than a lot of other teams in the league in that sense, but Twig's oftentimes doing his job in those moments, and don't think you could call him guilty of not doing it so far in this one.
They're starting up the Fire Giants already down below. It's halfway mark. There's going to be the Kraken confirmed for Ghost. Ducky now just in the middle of the fight, but he gets up onto the Somersault Cloud. Unbound, can't quite say the same. The shield comes up, the shield goes down, so does his health bar. It's Fine OK finds the credit for that kill. A double kill even for Fine OK as he locks down Sino. They lose Wolfie just off the back of the fight, continuing to chase down Wowie. And, you know, we had kind of memed it, but this does feel like the typical Ghost strat. Trolled around in game 2, now they're back in game 3, and they don't want anything to do with a loss.
No, and you kind of look at yourself like, how did they lose game 2? If this is what they're capable of, they just don't seem to be in the same class as Obey Alliance when they're playing like this. And it's not a knock on Obey. No one seems to be in Ghost's class when they start playing like this. It's really just based on Mike playing really well on the Cerberus in my mind, Panda Cat having a little bit more control on this left-hand side, but ultimately, I just think it's when you give a team like Ghost back-to-back looks at how you're going to beat them, it's not going to work 2 times in a row. You get 1 shot with each comp, and Obey played well game 2. Can't do it again to him in game 3.
Yeah, in game 2, that left Phoenix was able to continue standing. Unfortunately for Obey this time, not only do they lose the Fire Giant, but 2 Phoenixes in the blink of an eye as well as more kills. They get Panda Cat, great, but I mean, look at that, 4 deaths on their side. Looking to make it 5 Sam in the man match, but he's not going to be able to win that one against Ducky. And they actually pull away from the Titan room just for a little bit to give Twig the triple, but you had already called it. That's going to be game. 20 seconds left before anybody respawns on the side of Obey. It might take them a little while because we're 21 minutes into the game and they don't have their Hunter, but they're shredding this Titan. They still win it 2-1 this time as Obey finally take a game off them. It's just not enough.
Really good attempt by Obey. I mean, to get a win at all, definitely it deserves some respect against a team like Ghost, but at the end of the day, you look at the difference in games 1 and 3, and for me, it's really just what Mike was able to do. Inbound was able to do a lot in game 2 in particular. This Nike pick certainly threw Ghost for at least a little bit of a loop. They needed to talk about how to execute a little bit better around it. They figure it out for game 3 pretty handily, I'd say, but in game 2, Inbound was able to contribute at a level near or surpassing Mike. Games 1 and 3, for me, was really just PBM diff, and that happens to almost every single team in the league.
Yeah, and at the end there, I mean, that game, again, it just felt like it ended so fast. It was just kind of going back and forth between these teams. Yeah, Ghosts are picking up more kills and some of the objectives, but then it was just Fire Giant into Phoenixes into game. I mean, just again, instantly is what it felt like. Either way, GG's to Ghost. They now are up 3-0 over Obey, and that's the last time they're going to be seeing them this phase. They take the win, and with that, we'll go to a quick break before we break down this last game.
Well, Obey took him to task in game number 2, but could not quite stand up to the task here in game number 3. Ghost returned to form. Games number 1 and 3 were relatively convincing. I think they come away with a relatively convincing set win and continue to be one of the very best teams that we have here in the SPL. Now, Miff, this a wheelish pick for Sam. It is starting to rise up the ranks, isn't it? It is becoming an absolute nightmare for those on the other side. It feels like when their backs are against the wall, putting that in quotes, they come back to this a wheelish pick, and Sam just decides that the set is over.
Finch, why'd you put it in quotes, man? That was a game 3 situation, you know. Obey really did have their backs against the wall. Yeah, I mean, look, we know Sanford Soccer is sick. I'll talk about it all you want. 5-2-8, Sanford Soccer almost single-handedly shutting down the Nike pick with Gravity Surge. Wolfie has a very hard time dealing with the pressure coming his way in mid, but Aggro highlighted it best, as he normally does. This game was a Polar Bear Mike diff, man. Inbound couldn't keep up. In damage, in map presence, in ward pressure, every single thing. It just felt like PBM was outshining.
It was, and that's because he was, man. This Nike pick looks good in Game 2 when they were able to use it to kind of be the start of their pressure, when they're able to use it to exert, you know, that the game was even or a little bit ahead in their favor. But that was not the case this time when Ghost was able to get off to a good start. It's not like they did it from minute 1 or anything like that, but right around 10, 11 minutes or so was when they started to create their separation, exactly as you're seeing here. They came into this fight relatively close, but then Sam shuts it down with a double kill. And oh no, suddenly the gold lead started to get out of control, and no one plays with the lead quite like Sam does. And the reason why all these fights look so good is because Mike is constantly putting pressure on their beads, on their cooldowns, making it so that when Sam gets there, they're going to get pulled. They're going to not be able to get away, and Sam's able to lock them down and put out the damage.
Yeah, I'm glad that you highlight that Mike really was keeping people's beads on cooldown. There was a point in that game at around 13 minutes where Polar Bear Michael decided that I'm going to walk around the enemy mid lane tower, saunter through it, grab an ultimate on the Sino, and then just keep walking. Thanks for the beads, bud. Best luck later. And then exactly 40 seconds later, Sanford Soccer shows up and says, "What up, Gravity Surge?" And it just works. Every single individual piece of Ghost Gaming just works. Game 3 was convincing, as much as it pains me to say it.
But it's still a good set overall for Obey. No reason, I don't think, to be gloomy if you're Obey fans. This was always going to be a very difficult set to win. I do also want to give one more shout-out to Captain Twig on the Poseidon in mid. This has become my favorite pick to watch him on. I mean, the Hebo obviously his best pick, but just doesn't get to play that one much. It gets permabanned against him a lot nowadays. This Poseidon seems to, it just is where Twig is comfortable in the mid lane, is playing a pick with this kind of all-in potential.
Which is interesting because Poseidon is one of the more mobile mid laners, and now the other pick that I'm starting to associate with him, the Anubis, that got a debut by a ban from Sanguine and not from actually getting picked, is the least mobile mid laner in the game. Maybe Twig, you know, Anubis game 2 every single time. Game 3, give me the whatever you need. Hebo, Poseidon, let's just go ahead and win this one out really quickly. But I think you're right to highlight him. He looks very good on this pick, and I think that it definitely fits his playstyle. You can see the shades of old Captain Twig jungle every time he locks in that god.
I do think so as well. Let's take a look at these updated standings reflecting that Ghosts were able to take the big win here over Obey. We'll get those for you here in just a second. Ghosts 12-3, right behind SSG at 12-2. And now starting to create a pretty serious gap. It used to be a top 4 with Sanguine and Radiance hanging right with them, but that's a thing of the past, man. We need to stop with this top 4 nonsense. It is top 2 between SSG and Ghost, and everybody else is fighting for a chance to maybe take a swipe at the crown. But good luck trying to knock that one off. Schedule coming up here next. We've already finished up with Friday. No real big upsets there. Ghosts get the win over Obey. Procedural, perhaps, but Obey did manage to find that middle win in set 2. Now this Radiance E United set coming up next. It really is huge here because Radiance are on a tremendous slump. E United just got the reality check when they went up against SSG to see where they truly stand. But maybe Radiance can actually give them a run for their money in their next match.
If Radiance keeps up in the slump, I doubt it, man. I mean, you said it the first time Baskin came into the league. You're not going to make money betting against him. I think that United definitely have a very good shot coming into here. Radiance has still been struggling with their late-game shot calling. United just got a huge boost to their late-game shot calling with Captain Baskin at the forefront. I think, if anything, I might even be predicting a 2-0.
United's maybe the favorite in that set, but that's coming up a little bit later on. Ghost doing a bit of a victory lap after their win against Obey. It's Slaney that we have standing by for the post-game interview.
That's right, Finch. I'm sitting down here with Slaney, and Slaney, I got to start with this one. I think it's obligatory. Game 2, I mean, even the Ghost Gaming Twitter comes out that says the scroll of truth screams that Ghost must throw a game. What happened in Game 2 that let things get away?
I mean, you can't really have a Ghost set without some kind of trolling, in one of the games at least, or a throw, you know. Maybe maybe it wasn't a troll or more of us just throwing, but who knows.
Just a hint of both, right? Like a dash of trolling, a hint of throwing, and then you get a nice Ghost Gaming win.
A nice
it's in the
happy
recipe
middle ground.
that comes through. But so far, you guys, I mean, you've been on a streak, right? We just looked at the standings. The only team that's above you right now is at 12-2. It's SSG. You've only lost to 3 teams in Phase 2, and they've each been different teams, and it's only been once that they've been able to best you. So how are you feeling going into this last few weeks of the phase?
I mean, we're always going to be confident going into games. I think we're also lucky to have players that really show up when it really matters. So even if things don't really go our way in like a game, we usually come back in Game 3 looking really strong. So we're obviously always going to be feeling confident, but it feels good to get wins against everyone. I think we have like the head-to-head versus most teams now. So it'd be really nice to like finish off really strong.
So piggybacking off of that, you're going up against United and Renegades next week. United are about to go up against Radiant, so we'll maybe get a little bit of flavor for what they're going to be bringing. Renegades, last time you met, it was a kind of odd 2-0. Nobody predicted it happening that way. Are you worried about those matchups? Are any thoughts on those matchups? Or are you really looking towards your next SSG set that's happening in a few weeks?
Well, I think even today it's kind of proven that every team has really stepped up like considerably, even in the last few weeks. So whilst I wouldn't say I'm worried for like to play against United or Renegades, it's definitely not a team we could take lightly. They're really good, and I think with the roster changes that they had, which we haven't like faced yet, they've only gotten better since then. So we're not thinking about SSG. We're obviously just going to beat them next time we play them. So I'd be more worried about playing United because they have Snoopy than playing SSG.
Well, hey, I think it's appropriate, right? You're on the next target that's really going to come through, and you've beat SSG twice already. What's one more time, right, to throw out there? Either way, thanks so much for stopping by. Yeah, I mean, it's been great to be able to watch you and see how things have been going. But thanks again for your time after this win. Congratulations once again. And for now, we're going to go to a break before we get to the next set.